interpret your written ICFs as a request that at sentencing I waive costs associated with these convictions to the extent that is allowable under the law. As far as the record is concerned, this court is not the custodian. As far as anything in the written record or the file, the clerk of court is the custodian. As far as the official transcripts of the proceedings, those will need to be prepared, and there are costs associated with that. And there is a form that you or a lawyer acting on your behalf would need to file in order for this court to consider that. So I'll take all of that under advisement, but will not be addressing that specifically other than what I have just noted. The other thing I want to take up preliminarily before I hear from individuals who are here to make statements is the letter that I sent to the parties yesterday. It does address one topic that I wanted to address at the beginning of the hearing today, and that is your request for individuals to speak at sentencing did not contain a request that they appear by Zoom. And I wanted to clarify that with you, sir. If you were requesting that they appear by Zoom and make their statements if they're not present in the courtroom on your behalf when the appropriate time comes.
Yes, I apologize for that, Your Honor. I didn't know that it some type of step that I was supposed to include in that to make sure that they would appear by Zoom. I'm a little confused, so I apologize for that.
Sir, I don't know where any of these individuals live, whether they are local and can make it here or not. And I had anticipated that either of the parties, if there was a request for someone to appear by Zoom, that would be specifically made so that I could then take the appropriate steps. There is time. My intention would be that when the state has rested their portion of the sentencing hearing, all of their speakers have spoken and they have given their sentencing argument, that I would, depending on where it's at, probably take a break, start up the Zoom at that point, allow the individuals who wish to make a statement on your behalf to do so one at a time. But otherwise, I wasn't going to keep the Zoom up because the proceedings are being live streamed. Is that acceptable to you, sir?
In part, so I'm still a little confused on how would I get the Zoom link to those who wish to speak on my behalf?
My understanding is your mom has contacted the clerk of court's office. I haven't addressed that in any way, but I would then give my staff permission to reach out to her. I believe she has left her phone number, and we could do that and provide that Zoom information to her. And I presume she would be able to get it to the individuals on your list. It's very important, though, that only those individuals appear on the Zoom. That's the only people I will approve, unless they're here in court, of course. And then the other parameters are that that individuals who are on the Zoom for that portion of the sentencing hearing keep their microphones off, their cameras off until they are making a statement, and they have to be identified with obviously the name that was provided by you, and only those individuals. What I don't want to see is, one person and then 10 people behind them. That's not what I approved. So do you understand that, sir?
I have a quick question about that. Like, right. one of the people that wish to speak on my behalf would be the mother of my youngest daughter. And I'm not sure when exactly she'll be speaking. And it's a chance that she would actually have my daughter with her with that.
How old is your daughter?
She's 8.
As long as the child remains quiet and doesn't interrupt, I will allow that one exception.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I will instruct Madam Clerk to let my other clerk know that the Zoom information can be released to your mom. There's a meeting ID and passcode, and that can be provided to the other individuals on the list. And I anticipate that won't be until sometime this afternoon that we get to that portion of the sentencing hearing.
So if they have, because I know my grandmother would like to speak, and she's very elderly. So if she has any trouble like accessing it, will someone probably on my behalf be able to walk her through that? Or
Well, I assume she might need help with that, or someone will
yeah,
be
she's
available.
80, so I don't think she's, well, I know that she's not the most
I trust they will have
savvy.
that all figured out, sir. So, all right. All right, then. Is there anything else the parties wish me to address preliminarily before I turn to the state?
Yes, Your Honor, I do have a few preliminary matters, please. The filings that you just referenced from Mr. Brooks, I did not see those in the electronic queue this morning. Would it be possible for the state to get copies, please?
Yes, they, I believe, were hand delivered. Or Zach may be, Mother Clerk Zach may be doing that right now. We'll make sure, but Teresa can make copies for you as well.
Okay. I also wanted to ask a couple of housekeeping matters, Your Honor, as far as timing and scheduling. If we complete the hearing today, then I assume that eliminates the need for the hearing tomorrow. Is that correct? Or do you see a version where we come back tomorrow no matter what?
I do see a version where we come back tomorrow, no matter what. I want to be able to digest the statements from everyone and process them accordingly. There's going to be quite a few for both sides, and I think it's appropriate that I take the overnight to do that and come back tomorrow to render the sentence.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. The other question is, we have the easel back in the courtroom. Some people did want to display some foam boards. If it meets the court's approval, we'll leave it at this location and then just pass up the exhibits, and Detective Regland can display them if that's okay with the court.
Well, it's certainly like Mr. Brooks to be able to see them as well. Mr. Brooks, are you able to see the easel from where you are? Otherwise, I could have it put in the witness stand too. And then Detective Regland could just
Sure.
Kind of facilitate that.
Sure, okay. That will work. And then other individuals have brought digital photographs that we'll be displaying. So we'll need your clerk's assistance with that. And again, we'll be using Ms. Gussie at the back table to accomplish that.
All right, thank you. All right, anything else from you, sir, before we start this morning?
Yeah, just really quick. Very quick reference to the ICFs. I did address ICF to the clerk of courts in regards to the record. So I should have mentioned that when you was talking about it, but I did actually I addressed it to her personally.
I trust she'll respond in due course then. Anything else?
Not at this time, man.
All right. I will note that it appears yesterday some restitution information was filed. Was that hand delivered to Mr. Brooks? Attorney Opper? The restitution information, was that hand delivered to Mr. Brooks?
Yes. Everything we e-filed yesterday was provided to Mr. Brooks personally in the jail, Your Honor.
I object to that, Your Honor. There were a number of documents that I did not accept.
I'll have
And
the
mainly-
clerk print them off. There is a restitution request from the Waukesha School District totaling, oh, that's just one piece of it. Let me look at the letter again. There's a letter from the state and then a crime victim compensation request as well. The state will be requesting $47,193.29 to EMC Insurance Company on behalf of the School District of Waukesha, and additionally requesting $124,220.65 to crime victim compensation. That's the program through the Department of Justice. And supporting documentation, I believe, was also filed. Let me just look for that.
Well, can you say it again, Your Honor?
And we'll have it printed off.
It was delivered to him yesterday. Whether he accepted it or not, I don't know, but it's available to him in the jail, Your Honor.
All right, understood.
Well,
All right, thank
I don't
you.
have it, just for the record.
Madam Clerk will print it off and you'll have it
I don't-
shortly.
I don't know if they where they put it after I didn't. And the reason why I want to state this for the record, the reason why I didn't is because I didn't know what it was. When they came to my cell, I was sleeping, so I was just like, whatever, and not getting up. So it wasn't like a exchange or anything like that. It was just like, hey, we got some mail. I'm just like, yeah, I'm not. And it was like, all right.
All right, they'll be noted for the record, but again, it is being provided to you this morning, and you'll be able to review that as you see fit. All right, then Attorney Opper, one last question from the court. Do you anticipate making your sentencing recommendation at the conclusion of all of the other statements being made?
Yes.
All right. With that, then, you may commence.
All right, thank you, Your Honor, and I appreciate that. I do intend to just make some very brief preliminary statements to the court and then commence with the individuals who are present and have asked to speak. I just want to state again for the record, we have organized the individuals who want to provide a verbal statement to the court into 3 or 4 groups. I think we're at 4. Okay, we're at 4 groups. We have the first group present in the courtroom, Your Honor, and along with their support persons and family members and things like that. We will go through the first group and then request that brief break to trade out the groups if that's agreeable to the court. I just want the court to be aware and state something that's maybe obvious, but maybe not. The people that are speaking to this court are direct victims of this crime. They were either charged individuals or representatives of the groups such as the Blazers or the bank or whatever. You're very familiar with these groups now after having gone through trial. These are people with a direct link to either someone that was hurt or injured or killed. That's who we're presenting to you today. Obviously, there could have been thousands of people that would want to share with this court their thoughts, impressions, and the impact that this crime had on them. We did not turn anyone away, but some individuals did contact our office and expressed a desire to contact the court, or I'm sorry, to speak to the court. We directed them to write the court a letter if they felt it was appropriate. I don't know if the court received any such written materials. We also provided some written impact statements on behalf of our charged victims. I know the court has those and has very likely reviewed those already. So I don't want to spend a lot of time with my thoughts and impressions right now, because I think what's really most important is for this court to hear from these families. And the reason I say that is, Judge, that at trial, we asked some cursory questions about the injuries that were received and the impact that these crimes had on the individuals that were directly involved, but we didn't spend a lot of time on that. And I think this court is really going to be astounded to hear the level of injury that many of these people suffered. Many children suffered the impact, the life-changing impact it's had on them. So this will be different and new information than what we presented at trial. And I think it's very relevant and important for Your Honor to consider when you're deciding on a fair and appropriate sentence, and knowing the gravity of the crime, the seriousness of the situation, and the impact that it had on the community, to hear from these families directly as to what they went through. And again, this was touched on at trial as far as the physical injury versus the emotional injury and the trauma that has been suffered. So I think that will be important as well for this court to appreciate this defendant's conduct. We're past the guilty finding. He's been convicted. Now it's time to talk about what exactly his conduct did to our community and to these families. So these speakers are grouped, not necessarily within the groups as they march down the street, but there is some logic to, so we're not going to bounce all over the place is what I'm trying to say. We'll try and clump them together to make the most sense to the court. And with the court's permission. We have a set lineup. Of course, we may need to be a little bit fluid depending on somebody's emotional state or desire to speak when it's their appointed turn. There are some individuals that have said they're going to try and read their statement to the court, but they may not be able to get through it, in which case I believe Jen Dunn will step in and read the remainder of the statement for them.
Thank you. Would you please confirm on the record that the state has complied with victim rights?
Yes, we will confirm that, Your Honor. Thank you.
And then please give the court a heads up when a juvenile is next,
Yes.
so that the cameras can take the appropriate steps as well.
Yes, absolutely. And for the record, we did provide a list to the cameramen from Court TV or individuals from Court TV, and we're trying to assist them in that regard as well. We want to thank them again for their high degree of concern for obeying the court's order and their respect and intention to strictly adhere to maintaining the privacy rights of these victims. So they've been absolutely very professional in that regard, Your Honor.
Thank you. And then just lastly, because I would like to keep track, and obviously I will honor however they want to introduce themselves, but if you could also tell me which victim they relate to, if it's not self-evident,
Sure.
that would be great as well. And I'm going to keep a list.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
All right, then. I believe our first speaker would be Lori Loken.
And if it pleases, is this on? How's the volume? There we go. If it pleases the court, Your Honor, one of my staff will actually go let Court TV know when a minor is coming next.
So good morning, everybody. Again, strap in, prepare yourselves. It's going to be an emotional day, I'm sure.
Or I can tell the court this is for victim you.
There's going to be minors that are going to be able to speak. All the victims. I believe there's
Good
something
morning.
about 41
I'm
originally.
addressing the court.
So
Is the microphone on? Yeah, it is. Okay.
I'm gonna shut up
addressing
for
the
most of
court,
this and just
But
let
I
people speak
also
for
want to
themselves.
direct my comments to Darrell Brooks Jr. My name is Lori Locken. I was walking with the Catholic community of Waukesha, my church family. We were celebrating the joy of the season in preparation for the birth of Jesus when you made your decision to drive through the parade route. It truly amazes me that you deny your accountability for the damage and hurt that you have willfully caused. In the years ahead, I urge you to carefully consider the sorrow and grief of the Waukesha community and the world at large. Ponder the loss of lives within our families, the physical and emotional injuries that may never heal, and the sense of personal safety that you robbed from us. As for me, you never gave me a chance. I turned around and it was only seconds before you hit me square on. I clearly remember feeling the impact. The searing pain of that blow is as clear to me today as it was a year ago. Since then, I'm healing as best as I can from the physical injuries, but you took away my peace and my trust, something that I will never regain. My prayer for you is that you will find your salvation in the midst of this evil. I hope that you will repent for the heartache you have caused so many. I too pray that your own personal wounds that you have sustained through your life, which has created so many demons in you, will be healed through this action. Thank you.
Thank the court for this opportunity. I am Bill Mitchell, formerly known as Victim ZZ. To you, Mr. Brooks, I'm charge 52. On November 21st, 2021, I was marching with the Catholic community of Waukesha and the Waukesha Christmas Parade. was walking in the back and I noticed our banner was flying up because of the wind. So I went up to hold down the middle with so people could read it. I was joined by a priest who helped hold it down. We walked almost the entire joyful parade route when something caught my attention. I turned around and saw a headlight. And then I was hit. I didn't see the driver and I didn't see the type of vehicle. I flew over the hood and ended up on the ground with 8 broken ribs, bruised lung, fractured hand, finger, and my face was slashed open in several places, required stitches. Strangers and friends came to my aid as I lay bleeding in the street. I spent 3 nights in an ICU. Recovery was slow. My hand still has painful cramps that freeze in my fingers. But I know I was lucky. Others had a lot worse injuries and 6 died. The impact on my family was great. My wife was home recuperating from surgery when she received the call. I was hurt badly and on the way to a hospital trauma center. Not able to drive yet, she had to wait for my son and his fiancee to pick her up and drive her to Oconomowoc. And after I was released, she had to do a 180 from patient to be my nurse and help me in even the most basic tasks. The stress had slowed her recovery. The continuing pain was a major factor on me giving up a part-time job I enjoyed. We had to rely on family and friends for transportation to doctors for follow-up care for months. Neighbors pitched in to do my yard work and snow removal. Youth from the neighborhood decorated the inside of our house for Christmas. This crime had a ripple effect throughout the community. I do
Bear with me. I
want to
think
take this opportunity to thank all of you for your diligent sacrifice to be here. I tell people I was blessed because I didn't see the carnage that night. I just saw people helping me. But the jury and all of you had to watch the entire awful scene on videos and hear detailed reports of what happened. I'm sure that's going to stay with all of you. I wanted to thank the judge for her patience and knowledge, the police, Detective Casey, for their thorough investigation and quick arrest, the prosecution for presenting such a strong case. A special thank you to Jen Dunn, Carrie, and the entire victims assistance team that informed, comforted, and listened to the many people impacted by this tragic event. Finally, I can't bring myself to thank the defendant, but the response to the evil act he did shined a spotlight on how strong, supportive, and loving community we live in. Many people and organizations stepped up to help me. Family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, first responders, Aurora, doctors, nurses, my church family, the Catholic community of Waukesha, Knights of Columbus, AOH, United for Waukesha Community Fund, Catholic Charities, and so many strangers offered support and prayers. The vast majority of people are good. That said, then there is Mr. Brooks. He is a unique individual who can have a clear conscience after running over kids like speed bumps and killing 6 people. I would suggest someone without a conscience. He doesn't ask for forgiveness. He doesn't admit to doing anything wrong. It is never his fault. When he slapped a woman, it was her fault because she made him mad. I believe if he made it home that night with the red SUV, he would have told his mom the damage wasn't his fault. He was in a hurry and people didn't get out of his way. Some crazy old fat gray hair guy body slammed his hood. I didn't watch all the trial, but the parts I saw showed Mr. Brooks had a lack of empathy for his victims or remorse for his actions. The only regrets he seemed to have is that he was caught and the impact on his own life. Free, he would probably not drive through another parade, but chances are someone so self-centered as Mr. Brooks will hurt other people again. The only life he seems to value is his own. I don't believe that Mr. Brooks will think about me or any of his victims ever. The feeling is mutual. I really don't think much about him now, but when the prison door closes on this felon, I won't think about him again. I do hope Mr. Brooks will use the Bible for more than a courtroom prop. He may want to start with the basics that I know his family had taught him, thou shalt not kill, but then you might want to read Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Your Honor, I hope you give him the time to read and study the Bible. Mr. Brooks did everything he could to try to make the trial a circus. It is not a circus. It's not even about Mr. Brooks. Today, the court will hear what the trial is about, the victims. And as former victim ZZ, I would ask the court for a sentence that keeps the defendant, Darrell E. Brooks Jr., away from society forever. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Brooks, my name is Jason Peckloff, and I'm with the Catholic Community of Waukesha. I was one of the victims you hit with the SUV you were driving on November 21st. What you did to my Catholic community and to the city of Waukesha show that you had no regard for life. What makes it more disappointing that you have shown no remorse for what you have done. While you're sitting in prison, I want you to reflect what you have done. I want you to reflect that you nearly took my life. I almost lost the chance to see my wife and kids again. I may have never had the chance to love or hug them again. You intentionally harmed my community, whether it was physical or psychological. You stole our innocence that day. Before that tragedy you created, it was a beautiful day we all experienced and never thought an evil thing like this could ever happen at a parade. My friend, myself, and the Waukesha Catholic community were asking parishioners and their families to participate in this parade. Imagine the guilt we must all bear for the rest of our lives. Because of your actions, I was out of work for about 6 weeks. Then I had to go back part-time because of my sustained injuries. Because of your actions, the multiple lacerations you created leaked out of the bandages and onto my bed comforter and sheets. What an awful visual to have. Because of your actions, I could have lost my foot. Thank God my nurse friend was checking on me. Because of your actions, my wife cannot get the images out of her mind of what you have done. You have forever scarred her. Because of your actions, my wife had to hand over my children to our community friends to check on my lifeless body. Because of your actions, my children, 4 and 6 at the time, had to go with a grieving friend to find her own child that was in lockdown. It took a while for them to be reunited. Because of your actions, my children are scared to death when they had to cross the same street you drove down. They were bawling and begging me not to cross the street. Because of your actions, I need to reassure my children that it is safe at parades. Not sure they ever feel 100% safe. Because of your actions, not all people in our community are ready to go back to the parades. Again, you stole that innocence from them. Because of your actions, my children are scared of sirens. Because of your actions, they were scared of red SUVs every time they saw one. They cried and hid. Because of your actions, I walked into the entrance of my children's school and felt like a triage unit. I saw children on crutches and a walker. What an awful image to be burned into my memory. Because of your actions, I feel terrible. I could not help my community and the city by testifying during the trial. Your cowardly actions did this. Your actions forced my family to seek out therapy and resolve in their minds what happened. Your actions made us second guess what we did that day. What could we have done differently? During this trial, you show no remorse. It makes you look like a monster. During the trial, you show little regard and respect to the court. It makes you look disrespectful. During the trial, you treated multiple witnesses terribly. You were trying to twist the words of our pastor, who is a man of the cloth. You made a comment to a witness you injured that he was walking fine now. It makes you a callous jerk. Despite what you have done to my community, I forgive you. Forgiveness does not remove the need for justice. Justice must be served and you must go to prison. My prayer is that forgiveness will heal your wounds and the wounds for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Margaret Petulis, victim BBB, count 54. I know I am blessed to be here today to present my statement to the court. Darrell Brooks's choices on November 21st, 2021 took a toll mentally, physically, and emotionally on me, as well as affecting my family. I remember the moment someone yelled car, and I turned to see a vehicle behind and to the right of me. My thought was, what is this vehicle doing here? After that moment, I have a void in my memory. My mind won't let me see what happened. I remember my thoughts. Oh my God, this can't be happening. Please, not my hip, not my leg. My next memory is lying on the ground with a person from our group and a nurse talking to me and asking how I was. They worked on keeping me calm and from going into shock. I will always be grateful to them. Every night I would lay awake and replay the incident to see if I could get the memory back. Months of counseling and the passage of time have helped me be somewhat okay with not knowing what happened. One of my fears is that when I least expect it, the memory will return. After being impacted by the vehicle, I was laying on the ground with severe pain to my left leg. Emergency people stopped by, and one questioned whether I had been shot, and all I could think of is, why would I have been shot? I was eventually lifted into a police SUV and taken to Waukesha Memorial Hospital. I was examined and was released after being diagnosed with a broken bone in my left foot. I was instructed to wear the boot provided by the hospital, sit in a recliner, keep my leg elevated, and not put any weight on my left foot. I was instructed to follow up with an orthopedic doctor the following week. I went home and found it very hard to get from the car into the house. I couldn't figure out how to walk without putting my left foot down on the ground. My stomach was nauseous from the pain medicine. My husband and daughter assisted me into the house and sat me in a chair. I immediately passed out, and when I came to, my husband and daughter were concerned that I had had a stroke. They called 911, and I was transferred to Aurora Trauma Center. I was examined head to toe and again released with a diagnosis of a broken bone in my left foot. We live in a tri-level, and I was able to get to the lower level where there is a bedroom, a bathroom, and a family room. For the next 6 weeks, I would sit in the recliner with my left leg elevated and ice packs applied. I also slept with a wedge that kept my leg elevated while I was sleeping. After experiencing more pain in my left leg, I was sent for an ultrasound, and the ultrasound found a hematoma on the inside of my right leg. Standing up was extremely painful, even without putting pressure on my left foot. It would take me a couple of times of standing and then sitting back down on the side of the bed until I could bring myself to hop on my right leg using a walker for balance to get to the bathroom or to the recliner. My husband had to help me in and out of bed due to the extreme pain in my lower left leg. I couldn't dress or undress myself, take a shower, go to doctor's appointments, or to mass without his help. Every day he had to apply gauze wrap and an ace bandage to my left leg to cover the blisters so that as they would burst, they were covered. He then applied the boot sock and a boot. Every day for several weeks, he had to prepare all meals and bring them down on a tray to me. We were fortunate that he was working from home during this time. I had orthopedic appointments and 3 rounds of physical therapy. I am still going through physical therapy. After the bone healed in my foot, I was still experiencing pain in my ankle. The pain limited me. I had trouble walking normally, could not walk any great distance. Going up and down the stairs was best sitting on the stairs and going down that way. As time went on, I was frustrated that I could not perform the simple act of walking down the stairs. Before going to the third physical therapist, frustration set in as I thought I would always have pain and not be able to do all the things I enjoyed, such as pickleball, stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, walking miles, and traveling. My third round of physical therapy found that the whole left side of my body was twisted from the impact of the vehicle. After 10 and a half months and 3 rounds of physical therapy, I am now 95% back to normal. All the months of suffering and thinking no one would be able to figure out what was wrong, I was worried that the pain would remind me forever the choices Darrell Brooks made on November 21st, 2021. I wanted my life back. During this time of healing, I felt isolated and frustrated that the Advent and the Christmas season were happening, and I was unable to decorate, shop, or participate as I usually would during the holidays. Emotionally, since being struck by the vehicle driven by Darrell Brooks, I have felt like a victim. Every day I was reminded that I was limited by physical pain and loss of self. The world went on, but I was stuck, not able to move forward. Today, I am taking the final step forward in my journey of coming out the other side of this incident. Life is starting to look like it was before November 21st, 2021. I know I am not the same person that I was before this trauma, but now I have an enhanced appreciation for life and a stronger sense of spirituality. I am grateful to have a supportive family, supportive friends, and my Catholic community of Waukesha who have all walked this road with me. Forgiveness is a choice. I know that I can forgive you, Darrell Brooks, without forgetting the trauma you caused, without you apologizing and acknowledging your actions. This may take some time for me to accomplish, but after today, I will not let your actions take over my life. I will move on. Regarding sentencing, Your Honor, I would like to request that due to Darrell Brooks's total lack of concern for human life on November 21st, 2021, that for each count that the jury returned a guilty verdict, Darrell Brooks received the maximum sentence for each of those counts. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely. This has already been difficult to look at the fact that.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Rogers. My children were victims U and V. I'm a father of 4, 3 of which were marching with me in the parade last November. 2 of my children were struck and injured. I also serve as the president of the Waukesha Blazers baseball and fast pitch organization and was a couple months into that job at the time of the parade. I've debated whether or not to read a statement for this sentencing. At the end of the day, I felt it necessary to have my voice heard for my sake, for my family's sake, and for the Waukesha Blazers' sake, and for all the other victims. I'm here today with families that I love, and I'm so sorry that this happened. First of all, this event was completely avoidable, and from my perspective, there has been zero remorse, sympathy, or acknowledgement of the victims by the defendant. All he had to do was stop the vehicle when he saw the crowd, and none of these lives would have been changed forever. For this reason alone, he needs to be locked up for the rest of his life. But enough about him. This is about the impact of the event on me, my family, and our Blazers organization. I'd like to speak as a father, first of all. The impact this has had on my family and I has been immense. This last year has been full of confusion, irritation, anxiety, and depression. We haven't been able to live a normal life. The trial has been dragged out, and literally we were pulled back through to relive everything, all because this person wouldn't admit it like a man and take what was coming to him. My kids are some of the strongest people I know, and they have proven that through the faith in God they've displayed throughout. However, the impact this has had on them literally makes me sick. No more parades, that joy is gone. This is something that will never leave them. I'm still learning things today as well about what they heard and saw that day. I pray every night that God continues to strengthen them to push through and know that He is in control. That night when we got home, I'll never forget Caden looking at me with glassy eyes. He looked up at me and said, "I'm really glad Riley is okay," and started to cry. When my wife Stacy sat on the chair next to me that night, it felt different. She hugged me longer than normal and a lot more firm than normal and said, "Thanks for keeping our kids safe." Everyone saw on the videos that were shown, we're literally inches away from losing 3 out of our four children, and myself included. I thank God each day that He spared us and provided the adrenaline, courage, and strength to get my kids out of the way, gather all the kids we could, and pray together. My wife was going to come with us that night along with our toddler son. I play things in my head over and over, imagining what could have been if she would have come. Where would she have been standing when that SUV barreled through? I have flashbacks most days to Maya's jacket slipping through my hand. If I wouldn't have grabbed it the second time, I know what the outcome would have been. Riley still has trouble sleeping, with some nights getting out of bed 6, 7, 8, 9 times because she heard a noise or doesn't feel safe. A few days ago, I was one-on-one in the car with her, and I finally apologized for not finding her right away. Thank God our friend found her and kept her safe, but as her dad, I've lived with the fact that I couldn't find all my kids that night after it happened. I went way too long not knowing where my kids were, with panic overwhelming me. As a father, I can confidently say that this incident had a year-long impossible impact on me and our family. Are we managing? Yes, of course, as God is in control. Now to speak as the Blazers president. This was a happy gathering and almost the kickoff of my presidency with the Blazers since I was only a couple months in. We were getting to know each other, welcoming a new coach, our new board members, and overall just ready to advertise our Blazers program. Looking back at the pictures from prior to the tragedy, we were so happy. So much love and camaraderie. We were ready for an awesome season. I spoke just prior about my perspective during the event as a father of 3 kids, but as the president of our organization, the weight of the moment to find an account for everyone felt like it was on my shoulders. We had nearly 35 people there. I knew I had lots of help, and for that, I can't thank the other parents and coaches enough. The moment was a blur, and gathering and putting kids up in the truck was the priority. From there, the kids I could find huddled with me in the theater, and we said a prayer for those injured and being attended to. I knew that the next few days were going to be intense, but I never fully grasped how crazy the following days, weeks, and months would be. The amount of turmoil and struggle for our Blazers organization was literally insurmountable. From the moment of the incident, the amount of media and law enforcement interaction was exhausting and unending. Media showing up at my door asking for individual participants' status. Unbeknownst to them, the 2 of my children were hurt. There was nonstop email flow, phone calls, planning, coordinating, and filtering through things. It was endless work. This job went from something I truly loved, from my biggest passion in life, to something I cried about for months. I went from giving speeches on Facebook Live about how cool our new indoor facility was to speaking at Jackson's funeral. From there, the community really pulled together. The amount of love and compassion that came our way was also unending. It was honestly overwhelming. For that, we cannot thank this community enough. Finally, I wanted to briefly touch on the true impact this has had on me. My faith was challenged over the past year, but I can confidently say it's stronger than ever. The hardest part about the whole incident was not knowing where my kids were, not having answers for what just happened, not knowing if more danger was coming. I knew I had Maya next to me, but when I went back and forth screaming for Caden and Riley, that horror plagues me every day. I go back to those moments quite often, and when I watch the videos during the trial, it brought back all those feelings. Pure and utter terror, that's what it was, and that's the impact it still has today. Finally, in closing, I'm a man of faith and wanted to share 2 Bible passages which have pushed me through. First of all, my confirmation passage, Joshua 1:9, it reads, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." And secondly, I met with my pastor prior to testifying, and he provided me with an excellent part of scripture. Philippians 4, it says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all, the Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understandings, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Thank you for listening, and may God strengthen us all.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jessica Gonzalez, and this is my husband, Juan Gonzalez Lopez. We represent the Blazers organization, as well as many others, and you could even argue the state of Wisconsin. Last night, as I thought about my statement, my son scooched over on the couch and snuggled into me. He laid with his head on my lap, and I stroked his hair. We stayed like that until it was time for bed. He knows we're here today, and it was if he knew we needed a little extra love last night. Moments like these should be pure with love and affection. But since November 21st, they are mixed with flashes and images of what could have been. Mama, I'm here. I was on the other side. This is one of the memories and words that I'll never forget and hear dozens of times a day without warning. The relief I felt hearing those words on November 21st was devastating. But I found my son, unharmed. That should be the end of the story, right? We're fine, right? Physically, yes. But fine is a word we use when people ask us if we're okay. But we're not. It was only a short time before we had readied for the parade, got our hot cocoa, and took pictures to snap a shot of the fun about to be had. Before the parade, I left him with his teammate and new friend Jackson at the Blazers drop-off spot and walked my daughter to her dance team location. With my mother-in-law visiting from Mexico, she was excited for her first Christmas parade. Stationed at the corner of the Clark Hotel with friends, my daughter's dance group waved with smiles as they passed us. She was headed to the library where I would pick her up. The Dancing Grannies, one of our favorite groups, performed flawlessly as they passed us. My son's baseball group was after the extreme dancers who were within sight. Then the gasps and screams came from everywhere, and the red SUV sped past us. I yelled stop and put my hands out like I had the power to make it happen. I felt like I was punched in the stomach when I realized the SUV came from the direction of my son's group. Panicked and lightheaded, and knowing my daughter was safe, I ran to find my son. Running through the streets, my legs felt like they had a life of their own. I found Jackson first. I saw his little body in his Blazers jersey. His eyes looking up, looking nowhere. I knew he was hurt badly. Seeing Jackson on the ground, I began looking for my son amongst the rest of the bodies. I screamed hysterically, searching frantically. What ifs filled my head. I heard Mom from so many directions, but it wasn't him. Finally, it was. I turned to see him with other Blazers who were in the team truck. He called out to me, "Mama, I'm here. I was on the other side." Yes, I found my son unharmed, but after, the chaos continued. We ran. I covered his eyes as we rushed back to our group. I called my husband to tell him something terrible had happened, but had no words to explain. Headed for the library, we were told there was an active shooter. We ran again. I covered my son's head with my arms so bullets would hit me first. He cried. I tried to assure him and myself that things like this don't happen. At the library, I ran up the stairs and shouted for my daughter, who was huddled with a friend and her daughter. Yes, I found my children unharmed. But after, the pain and terror continued. After the parade, we discovered people had died and that several people in my son's group were hit, including his coach and teammate. We learned that my son's teammate was in critical condition, but I already knew this. I still see his eyes without closing mine. What does it feel like to attend a funeral of a child your age? I hate that my kids know. I hate that I didn't get a chance to cheer on my son and Jackson during the baseball season last year. I hate that my son said it was weird having one less teammate. For more than a week, it was late nights to avoid sleep, and our family of 4 piled into one bed. There was no question this was a traumatic experience. Counselors were available. My son didn't want to talk about it, and today still doesn't. I tried to return to work. I tried to return to teaching. I couldn't make it through a day without feeling hypervigilant, startling at every noise, having a panic attack from the sound of a door, shout, thud, gasp, anything and everything. After the parade, I couldn't make it through a day. My joy disappeared. I felt guilty. I had no right to feel joy since my son and daughter were alive and others were not. I was open about questions my kids had, but I cried and screamed in agony when they weren't around. I overreacted, shouting and pulling my kids near in the parking lots and streets, or anytime I saw a car come within a quarter mile away, convinced they all had ill intentions. PTSD throws all the punches. I left my career to work intensively on healing in a program for PTSD. I have only just returned to the workplace, only just a month ago. Something quieter, something with less action. Because after almost 1 year, some days still feel like November 21st was yesterday. Intrusive memories, hypervigilance, nightmares, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, anger, guilt, shame. These are all things I and others live with daily because Darrell Brooks drove through our joy and turned it to terror. When he suggested he could have hit more, he was wrong. He hit everyone. The toll this event has taken on everyone, physically hurt or not, is tremendous. And it sickens me to know that there are so many others with a similar story as ours. I know some today may offer forgiveness, but for me, forgiveness is for accidents, for mistakes or poor choices that the offender expresses remorse for their actions. Darrell Brooks offers no remorse, but he did search for sympathy for himself. I cannot offer forgiveness. I will not. Darrell Brooks should be held accountable for every second of pain and trauma he inflicted on all of us that day, including the many years inflicted already on Miss Patterson. Free, he is and always will be a danger to society. With that, Your Honor, I ask that the full sentence is issued and he spends the rest of his days in prison without the chance of parole. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm Lindsay Conkle, and my family walked with the Waukesha Blazers. November 21st, 2021, my family walked in the Waukesha Christmas Parade. My boys were dressed proudly in their baseball jerseys, streets lined with smiling faces. The crowd was happy and excited. In a split second, excited cheers turned into sounds of screaming and horror. A trail of bloody bodies were left laying in the road. My family was not physically injured that day. We somehow dodged the path of the car by inches. Our mental and emotional injuries were severe, and they remain a struggle for us every day. We have the image and the sound of an SUV plowing through people burned into our minds for the rest of our lives. My children were separated, and I ran through a trail of bloody bodies that were left laying in the road. I will not forget how many people I saw, some seizing in an intersection, some unconscious, and some not. My children cried themselves to sleep for weeks after and still do. They still wake up with nightmares, as do I. They could not walk in a parking lot without clinging to me, shaking and terrified that a car would try to run them down. We suffer from major panic attacks and PTSD, all from a day that was supposed to be happy and exciting. As parents, we have to try to help cope with our children, but we do not know how to cope ourselves. My children, my family, and I, and every person that we know will never be the same after that day. There were many people that were fortunate enough to walk away unharmed. However, Jackson Sparks was not one of those people. A child, 8-year-old, walking next to his big brother with his whole life ahead of him. The next time my children wore their baseball jerseys was to a funeral. A funeral for an 8-year-old boy, their friend, their teammate, that they had spent many days playing and making memories while at their brother's baseball games. His family and friends will never see his smiling face light up a room, and his team will never be able to celebrate a win with him on the baseball field ever again. Every moment of Jackson's life that was ahead of him was ripped away by Darrell Brooks. You, Darrell Brooks, you hid in a children's playhouse and ditched your hoodie in a sandal. That playhouse happened to be my children's at the house we just moved out of a couple of months prior. That playhouse was built for them, built for my sons, and you hid there after you left their friend and teammate lifeless in a road, along with many others. You didn't just get lost in a parade route. You disregarded police and the safety of hundreds, and you disregarded life. You very selfishly ripped away the joy from the families who were there just to bring joy to others. There are many holes left in our community, but our community has grown stronger and we all have each other. You, however, will have no one. You will have no one in a cell where you belong for the rest of your life. Thank you, Judge Darrell, and we ask that please he never see the light of day again.
Thank you.
That smile, man, in the eye rolling, guys. I'm not speaking much because this is definitely a time for me to shut up and listen. But man, there's so much I want to scream at the screen right now. With this guy, just
My name is Sherry Sparks. I am
appreciate you
Jackson
all
and
being
Tucker's
here.
mom.
Oh my God.
I stand here today with my son Tucker and my husband Aaron. I'm here today to represent my family, but mostly for my boys, who were both struck down by the red SUV on November 21st. I want to give a voice to our son Jackson Sparks. Our family is forever changed. We are hurt, angry, traumatized, and broken. November 21st was a day that was supposed to be fun and filled with laughter and smiles. Instead, it became a nightmare full of fear, screams, and tears. Put the first one up. My boys were walking in the Waukesha Christmas Parade with their baseball teammates, friends, and coaches. It was a chilly and windy day that day, so we all layered up and prepared to kickstart our holiday season. We met up with our Blazers group, decorated the truck, prepared the buckets of candy and flyers for the boys, took some group photos, and then I left to go find my seat near the end of the parade route and wait for our group while enjoying the parade. I had no idea then the nightmare that was coming my way. Nor did I know that it would be the last time I would hear Jackson's voice and see his smile. I wish I would have known then that the hug he gave me before I went to sit down was the last hug I would ever get from him. I would have held on to him a lot longer. After the red SUV flew past us, it was pure chaos. I will never, ever forget the horrible sound of the car hitting bodies and the thud of bodies landing on the ground. I immediately grabbed my favorite plaid blanket, ran up the street to find my boys. What I found shook my world. I saw Jackson first in the arms of a police officer. He was running him to get him medical attention. My husband was right behind them and told me that Tucker had been struck also. Pointed me back to the direction where Tucker was. Can you do the second photo, please? That's Tucker underneath my blanket there, the plaid blanket. My world came crashing down at that moment. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw up and cry. Adrenaline kicked in and I went to find my boy. I spotted Jackson's baseball hat lying in the road first, then Tucker's hat. Then I found Jackson's shoe, which kind of led me to Tucker. I finally spotted him. He was one of the many bodies lying in the road, covered in blankets. I recognized the shoes on his feet. That's how I found him. They're sticking out from under the blanket. I stayed at Tucker's side as he lay in the road waiting for an ambulance to come back for him. He was semi-conscious, but we couldn't move him without a backboard due to his head being injured. They had run out of backboards. Luckily, a nearby shop owner / hero dragged a door out of her shop to roll him onto so we could get him out of the cold and get him warm. An hour laying out in the cold road where he was thrown from impact. You can go to the next photo, please. This is what we were facing next. Both boys had traumatic head and brain injuries. They both ended up in the ICU at Children's Hospital. Their rooms just a few doors down from one another. The next day, Tucker asked us about Jackson, if he was okay or was he worse than himself. Do you have any idea how gut-wrenching it is to have to explain your 12-year-old son that his little brother isn't going to make it? His injuries were too extensive for his little body to come back from, and that he won't be coming home with us ever again. Leaving him at the hospital was brutal. To see the confusion, frustration, and hurt on his face when he's standing over his little brother in his hospital room, taking in all the machines he was hooked up to. Tucker remembers everything up until the moment he was hit. He had actually turned around and saw the SUV coming towards them. He said Jackson was right next to him. He said he saw a few people get hit, and then he tried to run out of harm's way. He didn't make it. Being the protective big brother, Tucker blamed himself. He felt he should have tried to grab Jackson or done more to protect his little brother. It broke my heart to hear him saying these things. Tucker's physical injuries were also severe. He still struggles with memory issues and brain processing speed. The mental and emotional damage is severe. Survivor's guilt, PTSD, anxiety. He still gets headaches. His little brother was taken from him. He's suddenly an only child now. He misses his little brother and his playmate. Jackson brought out the silly in him, and life will never be the same without him. You can go to the next photo. Every holiday, special event, family function, vacation, there will always be an empty chair or space where Jackson should be. Jackson's absence is very prominent. Every day we face that vacancy, and it triggers sadness and trauma. Jackson's life was taken from him and taken from us. Life isn't the same without him, and it never will be. This morning, I should have spent the morning making him breakfast, taking him to school, hearing about his day later. Instead, I'm standing here in this courtroom, asking for justice for my boys. We came so close to losing both of them that day. I miss Jackson every second of every single day. I feel gutted and broken. It hurts to breathe sometimes. It hurts to live without him here. My mama's soul aches for him. I am emotionally and mentally exhausted. The pain I carry with me every day feels so heavy. Yet I have to push forward, still be there to help Tucker heal, and move forward with find our new normal. Here are the next photo, please. As a family of faith, we know this man will face God's judgment someday for his actions. Until then, we feel it is this court's duty and responsibility to all the victims to sentence this man to the maximum penalty allowed under Wisconsin law for each and every guilty charge. We feel this man does not deserve to see freedom in our lifetime, nor our son Tucker's lifetime. We have learned throughout this trial that this man is incapable of empathy or remorse. He has shown no sympathy nor apology for all of the pain, suffering, and loss of life he has caused to so many. This man not only took Jackson away from our family, he violently ripped Jackson out of our lives. Jackson was only 8 years old, 8. He only had 8 years here with us. He was robbed of everything. He'll never get to hit a home run, catch frogs with his brother again, meet his wrestling hero, Braun Strowman. He won't ask a girl to prom. He won't go to college, get married, or have children of his own. Jackson will never be able to do any of these things. These milestones will never happen. He was a bright light in our lives. He was very shy to most people, but those close to him, to his family, he was a big ball of energy. He was charismatic and full of light in life. His life was cut out way too short. Jackson and the other victims deserve justice. We deserve closure in order to heal and find our new normal. We hope to achieve that today. Thank you. And thank you, prosecution, Judge Darrell, very much. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
At this time, Your Honor, we'd like to request a break and bring in the second group.
Yes, the court's going to step off as well while you do that. We'll take about a 10-minute break.
Thank you.
Wow. Phew. That was every bit as heavy as I expected it to be thus far. So what we have right now is the, well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here with us today. We knew today was going to be heavy. We knew it was going to be a hard one. Let me put this up for you here. Man, whew, not a dry eye in the house, I'm sure. This has been incredibly difficult. I want to make sure you know the court is just on a quick 10-minute break while they're setting up. So one of the things that is happening is they're able to show sorry, I want to put the banner. They are able to show or videos, audio, or they're able to show visuals. So there are pictures like the one we saw of the 8-year-old who passed away, was killed. The reason that the camera wasn't on the mother at the time is because she had her other son, her 12-year-old or 13-year-old now, I believe, with her, and they're making it clear they're not going to show any I'm also monitoring comments here. But thank you, mods, for jumping on here. I know it's a tough one to do today because there's a lot of heavy feelings and emotions. But what I was saying is they're not showing any minors on camera, so they've been coached to make sure that they don't do that. I really do appreciate you guys all being here and sharing the stream out, making sure that as many people get a chance to see this as possible, get the closure that they need. I know that it's there's something about this, man, that it goes back to going to like meetings, you know, when I was first started my road to recovery, and getting a chance to just be with other people that have suffered or that were going through the trials that I was going through, helped me have the strength that I needed to continue to push and to try to go that next day, and that next day of sobriety, the next day of sobriety. And eventually that built up to a point where I was able to help other people make it through there. And I think that's a lot of what we're going through right now is this is it's a chance for us to all kind of commiserate together. We're able to do this together, and hopefully we'll be able to find the closure that we need for all of you. I know there's a ton of us out here that are currently in Wisconsin. I know I'm looking out the window right now here in Kenosha County, and it's snowing up a storm, and a real reminder of that day that the parade attack happened. I remember driving down there. I was in town, and we drove down to Waukesha right when we got word that there was an attack, and met up with my team there. And it was just frozen cold. It was such a cold day. I think it was, in the 20s with the wind chill that brought it down to like 0. It was ridiculously cold. And so hearing that mother's testimony about how her son was just lying in the road for an hour cold. I mean, I can't imagine how, when you're in shock already and then having to deal with the elements that were there, and just having all of that. I mean, it's been, we're creeping up on the 1 year mark. We're like 1 week away from 1 year. And yeah, thank you, Jacqueline. That was a long day. It was a long night for everybody. And I remember getting there, and they were still at that point. It was probably an hour or two after the attack took place, 2 hours probably. They were still. I mean, I was filming, and they were still taking bodies out of the road. It was that bad. And like some of the quotes from the children were thereafter was that they thought that the blankets, all of the blankets in the road, were presents that were being left for Santa. Unbeknownst to them, they were covering the bodies of victims. And the carnage, man. This is just. I remember just the arriving on the scene and it being baby strollers and little shoes, and the first thing you see are discarded and destroyed baby strollers. And the next thing I saw after getting around the corner onto Main Street was a child's jacket, just splattered with blood, and there was mittens and shoes all around. And having not known what happened entirely, just getting a kind of a quick glimpse of it, I'm sure for anybody that was watching that, anybody who's curious now what happened, looking back, and we're not going to discredit what we're going through today, with rewatching what happened to get us here. We've had to go through that enough for the 2 weeks of lunacy, watching this raging POS just be as insubordinate and callous as he is right now. The fact that we're watching this, we're listening to people who had family members die and had their lives permanently impacted, and watching him laugh and roll his eyes still. I mean, if you know people on the inside, if you have friends or family that might have committed a crime at some point and found their way into a state prison in Wisconsin, it might not be a bad idea to make a call. I'm just saying, let them know they have someone coming to visit them soon. Let's give them an idea what kind of person is on their way. But there's really not much that I would expect more from this person, this guy. I mean, this guy he's a child rapist, lifetime, just hard case of not giving any second thought to the things he's done and blaming the world around him for everything that's happened, which is crazy that, as the victim said, he was blaming the victims for being in the way of his car at one point. And then at one point, if you guys remember his closing statements, he first blamed the car for what he did. He said that there was a factory recall in the car, and that model should have been recalled, that it basically drove itself into these people and killed 6 people and maimed 60 plus others. He moved on forward from that, and then went to say, how can we ever really know the will of God? This was just the will of God, that I drive this car through these people. We'll never understand God. And then he furthered it and went on to, in that rant, which we call the closing statement, to throw shade at the prosecution for not focusing enough attention on the victims, and how dare they be so callous and not think about those poor people that were injured out in the street of Waukesha that cold night. And the fact that he's in this mindset that he is beyond it. And even after it was all said and done, I mean, when before they pre-verdict, if you guys watch the outro from that day in court, he was just laughing and enjoying his time, giggling with the judge, going on about just all of his his regular rants, all of his his go-tos, which were I can't even get into the amount of his nonsense that he pulled off, but he was still in that mode. Like he felt better about it. Like, finally we're out of the woods here. I can finally go into I can go into relax mode now. Go back to my cell, read a book, have dinner, whatever he does on his dailies. But now we're sitting here realizing that the laughing's over, the suit's off, he's shackled up for good reason. These are those cases that you expect to see a member of the family or someone else, attack this guy, while he's sitting there being so, and not just for what he did, but the fact that what he's doing about it, and we've said, sentencing will not, Christy, probably not today. There will be 2 days. What will happen tomorrow, we're not sure. So yeah, let me talk about that before we jump back in. So we have 2 days of victim impact statements that'll be going on. Well, they've opened up 2 days, depending on how long it takes. They seem to be going through them pretty quick right now. I believe that on the list they had about 41 that were projected to speak and or present from the victim's side, from the victim's impact side. And with that, I believe there was a handful of those that were going to be Zoom for people that didn't want to or couldn't be present for court live in Waukesha. And then after they're able to share what they need to, then we're going to they open the floor to Darrell Brooks. I'm not sure, and this is where anyone can chime in, please, if you know. I'm not sure if they're going to open the door to him to speak, but they're going to open the door for him to have people speak on his behalf, I believe is how it works. Which obviously his mother, who he made it clear does what he tells her to do. She's going to be in court. She'll go where I tell her to go. She does what she's told. I believe the mother of his youngest daughter, he said, is planning on speaking and bringing his 8-year-old child into court with her. You guys, so to be very clear, that there were 77 original charges. One of them was not dismissed, but I guess dismissed, yeah. But found guilty on all 76 of the other charges. The range for maximum sentencing for those charges is 900 plus years plus 6 life sentences. All of the homicide charges, which are now homicide, he is now a mass murderer. To make no mistake. So the charges that you see on the screen here, the 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, those all carry a max sentence of life in prison. There is no death penalty in Wisconsin, which I know that I've seen thousands of comments since we've been doing this, thousands and thousands of comments of people that were just, asking. And if you hadn't caught that yet, yeah, there's no death penalty in Wisconsin. And I've never felt really like one way or another about the death penalty. These are those times when I feel strongly that I'd be okay with seeing that. That's something I would be okay with seeing. In a notion that there's zero remorse that you've seen from him at all, none. We've seen nothing but defiance and complete disdain for the suffering and pain that he caused. The fact that he's going to be able to spend the rest of his days in a prison, going to, program nights, watching movies, getting his meals, taking his commissary, going and working out, but pretending to go to church if that's what he thinks he's going to, keep up that act, as he sat and pretended to read the Bible when he first started, did his little prayer thing. It's late for that, bud. It's late for that. You know what I mean? Make your peace with God later. But at this point, man, if there was any shred of human decency in him, anything at all, he would sit the hell up, straighten up the shoulders,
Back on
and let these
record.
people talk directly
The
into his
statement
face, accept it, and apologize for every single one. But that's not what we're saying.
Group
So,
2, I believe. Kelly, are you going to go?
and we're back in court here, guys. So please, again, share the stream. Share it out to community groups, whatever you're a part of. It's important that people get a chance to experience this part of this case if they weren't able to for the first, hundreds of hours that we were broadcasting live covering this case. This part, this I believe, these next 2 days are going to be crucial for giving people a chance to finally put all of this hopefully somewhere in their rear view. Hopefully.
LLO, and on November 21st, 2021, me and my family's life changed forever. My brother and I were headed to parade. We've been scared of parades not letting us feel safe and comfortable, or even being able to run out into the road to fetch candy. For example, when I went to the Arrowhead Parade, all my friends were asking me why I didn't want to go out into the road to get candy, and I said, because of the Waukesha Parade. And I was mad because if the parade incident did not happen, I would be able to go onto the road to enjoy something as simple as a parade. When I got to the parade with my friends, I constantly remember to not go onto the road To be better safe than sorry. It is the last thing I want to happen again. How could you do this? Think of your kids. Would you do this to them? I'm just a child with a lifetime left to live. I'm also here from my younger brother, victim KKK. When he was hit by the front of the car, he was traumatized forever. I feel his fear. I feel his pain, because when I was hit, I broke down into tears too. On the way to the hospital, we had to lay our head down on the floor because we heard there was a shooter. My fingers, my whole body was paralyzed in fear and fright. When we made it to the hospital, I was terrified because I thought I broke my fingers. And when they asked me what happened, I was too busy crying that I couldn't speak. I still think about this event to this day. The day after the parade, I couldn't even go to school because of what he did. All my friends were worried about me, texting me, asking if I was even alive. Sometimes I even think of all the others that were hit and how they were in the hospital for longer than me, and how their parents were probably praying that their kids would be okay and that this would be a once-in-a-lifetime happening. I think this should have never happened to us. The day I went back to school, everyone was asking me a million questions every time I was alone. Everyone was babying me, acting like one of my family members was killed. What makes it worse is that almost a year ago my dog died, and I have lived with it my whole life, so I was extra sad and upset. At that moment, I realized that our family had to find justice against the man who hit too many people and caused a nightmare on November 21st, 2021. I ask for this pain to never be caused again.
And I've been asked to read a statement by victim KKK. When I got hit by the car that day, it hurt a lot. I got hit on my right leg, and it still kind of hurts now and then. That hit changed my life, and it still scares me sometimes when I think about it. I also feel bad for the families who lost someone and everyone who died and was in the parade. And then he drew a picture of a SUV, and it says car that hit me, and there's a little figure and candy bucket and bottle and me. So they handed that to me on behalf of victim KKK.
Yara, we need to take a break for a second, please. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's important. All right, thank you.
Do that.
So I'm not sure what happened or what's going on, but apparently they need to take a quick break as well. Let me make sure to put that up here again so people know what is going on. Yeah. So again, they're not going to show the minors on camera. So that young person was, it's just, you got to remember that there was not just obviously the 6 victims, but the so these are the 6 people who passed away. And if I get any of the names wrong, I apologize. We had Jane Kulich, Lee Owen, Tamara Durand, Virginia Sorenson, Wilhelm Hospel, and then of course Jackson Sparks, whose mother just spoke just a little bit ago. We're not sure what happened, why they went off camera, where they just said there was something important that just took place. They needed to take a quick break. I'm not sure. Maybe it could have been a medical thing. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not sure. But these are the victims that passed away. Beyond these folks here, these people whose lives were taken by Darrell Brooks. Keep in mind that amongst them, in these charges down here, there's 61 counts of recklessly endangering safety. There's 61 other people that were hit by that car. 61 people were clipped and hit and run over and drugged and smashed and slammed by this car that he drove. And it's astounding to me that there's anything in this human being that would find pause and not stop and say at some point throughout the course of this entire trial, I'm a complete F up, I did it. Yeah, you're done. You're cooked. He knows. He has to know. He knows he's done. he knows that there's nothing left. Yeah, there's and just roll it, man. 76 charges total, found guilty on 76 charges. It blows my mind that we're in a place still where I don't even know how they're supposed to handle this, because you see him like making reference to he gave that little chest pat, like almost paying a little tribute to this child who spoke, because that's speaking to the father in him, right? Regardless of the fact that one of his children came via the way of raping a minor, and then now he's got multiple children thereafter. Past that, he's in his head somewhere, he has to know that there's a little person that is not here permanently because of him. And if anything sinks in, hopefully that will, and that'll just, crack the floodgates open and let all of the rest of it hit him at some point. And that's all we can hope for, because right now we're on a short break, waiting for the court to come back in because of something that happened. We're not sure. But while we're waiting, we're any comments people have, throw them up here, please. Either be you on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Periscope, Rockfin, another platform you can also find me on at Rockfin, CJ Halliburton or CJ TV Media. It's ROKFIN. It's a pretty censor-free platform, which is offering, hopefully, an opportunity, chance to really cover as much as possible. So we were talking a little bit about the experience that not yet, Lady Kate. I will be Rumble. Yeah, you guys said actually I think I might be. I'm not currently live on Rumble, but I will be. Very soon. So keep that in mind as well. And I'll post a link up for everything here. Rockfin, CJ TV Media. Let me double check. The Rockfin is it is going to be. Honestly, I'm not very good with. Haven't done much with it. So either way, it's over there. The vigil was heavy. And actually, let me see if I've got some videos from the vigil. We were there more than just the day of the attack. We went back with the entire community of Waukesha to the vigil, which was pretty profound. And we had a chance to that was a tough one for me, guys. That was a really tough one for me. I wasn't prepared for that, based off the experience that I've had for the entire for 2 years leading up, year and a half, however long it had been, 2 years roughly, leading up to that particular day. I had definitely it hit hard. It hit really hard. That was I was really kind of when I took a little bit of a break. I had to step back from streaming for a while. That one was incredibly difficult to watch, to be a part of. I mean, it needed to happen, but it just hit hard. It hit really hard. I'm trying to find the real fast for you guys while we're on this short break from while court's at break. I'm going to pull up the. This guy is horrible to watch, man, because even the judge is in tears on the stand. This is not a situation where it's easy to walk past, and it definitely is. Nobody here is able to, I don't think, watch this and not feel a connection to the people that are speaking. It's just just horrible. So I'm going to pull this up for you guys. some of the other things that we've had in here are the there were yeah, some of the things we've had to deal with this guy, like the subject matter jurisdiction. We've had to deal with him getting sent to his little box fort. And you guys remember, having the his little box fort here where he couldn't even keep himself together long enough, you guys, to actually sit through a court date any one day, and they would send him off to his side court. And most of the names that I see here in the comments have been watching with us for the full 2 weeks of the trial that we were covering. And for those that didn't, you guys, he was so incredibly vocally insubordinate and so incredibly outspoken and loud about everything that they'd take him and they'd have to put him in a separate courtroom where he would have to sit and hold an objection sign because they'd have to mute his microphone. And then at one point, he just would start screaming at the wall to the point where you could hear him in the other courtrooms. And because he couldn't keep his composure on that either. And it goes to show that, this guy is unable to deal with anybody having any kind of say in anything he does. But I mean, he drove this car. This damage on this car that you're looking at right here was all done by human bodies. I mean, he ran over a couple little barricades. And I say barricades, they're like wood sawhorses that were laying down on the ground. But this, what you're seeing here is all done by human bodies. And even on that car, there was like headbands that were stuck to the side view mirrors. And I mean, when they had a chance to go view the vehicle, and we have that video here as well, which I could show you guys, which was wild, man. The fact that I keep saying it. I'm still reeling at what I've seen from this guy. His just the way he carries himself completely it's infuriating. Like I mean, let's here, I'm going to show you guys this one real quick because we are still, and we're good. I'm watching it. We'll definitely have we'll be back up when court comes back in. We're in court. I'm watching it right now. They didn't say what it was. They cut the reason we're on court break right now. They didn't say. They just jumped out. They said, "Hey, there's an emergency," or they didn't say emergency. They just said, "We need to take a quick break. It's important." So I'm not sure what that might be. Chat being weird. I'm not sure what you mean, Mark, over on YouTube. But one of the things I do want to show is we're going to go ahead and this is another one of the victims thereafter and this is just to kind of give you a better understanding. This is what the people were having to think about before they even were going to show up at court, was that they would have to face this guy. And here's the thing, and they were having to face him as a as a witness would be one thing, right? But because you're having to sit there and the way that he was doing his examination, his cross-examination, whatever, of any of these victims, and some of the people he had called on his list were victims, which blew my mind. And we all agreed that none of the people that spoke for him did anything for his case. But what he did try to do was degrade the mother of his child, the young woman whom he raped when she was a minor, Miss Patterson. He tried to bring in photos just to throw in her face that he lied and said that she had sent him. She hadn't. He questioned and laughed at victims and basically called hearsay and objections on what they were saying. It just was, it blew my mind that there was a chance for these unfortunate people to have to sit in front of him because he represented himself. And this is where things got crooked. Because he represented himself in the court of law as his own attorney, he was able to question and interrogate these people. And I can't imagine for them a more infuriating situation. And the officers, and there were some, and you guys hopefully tonight I'll try to put together a highlight reel of the real soldiers that carried the and none of it worked for them. You're right, Jack. None of it worked for them. The ones that really gave us a chance to finally be like, there you go. The ones that spoke back, and like Nick and some of the officers that were just finally like through his whole, I don't consent to being called that name. That were like, you, Darrell Brooks, you're the one that I saw eye to eye in my yard after you ran through that crowd of people with the car. I saw you, Darrell Brooks, you getting out of the car. And the ones that were really like on point, just saying, no, we're not going to deal with the way that you're trying to manipulate the questioning to get us into a place where we're going to, stumble on our own words. What you did and what you're doing is not going to be tolerated. And when they finally started like saying things, pushing back, it was beautiful to watch, because it felt like finally people were saying what we were hoping every one of the witnesses would say, up and until the reading of the verdict. When you had that one person in the audience who spoke up, and he said, I hope you burn in hell, you piece of shit, is what the guy said from the back, from behind him. So yeah, terrible. This real quick I'm going to show you is this is what one of the victims was preparing for when it came to
those opening statements just hours away now. Our Elaine Rojas Castillo shares how the family of one of the victims of the parade attack is preparing to face the man accused of this crime. Wow, Elaine, what a story.
What a story indeed, Simone. Good morning. Ryan Conkey is the uncle of 12-year-old Jesselyn Torres. Jesselyn was one of dozens of people that were injured when Darrell Brooks allegedly drove his SUV through that parade. Jesselyn was seriously injured in this attack and suffered multiple injuries, including a lacerated or broken pelvis and injuries to her lungs and liver. She spent more than a week on life support before she was strong enough to breathe on her own and taken off a ventilator. The impact of that SUV also detached one of her kidneys. Ryan says that while Jesselyn is doing much better, the idea of having to potentially face the man that caused her so much pain is frustrating.
It's definitely a concern. It's a major concern for not just my family, but for any of the witnesses that are also victims, that, somebody who committed such a heinous crime gets to question them. Personally, I understand the process. I may not like it, but I understand it and I respect it.
Ryan says while the last 2 days of jury selection have been difficult to sit through, he and his family do plan on watching the trial from start to finish. Reporting live at the Waukesha County Courthouse, Elaine Rojas Castillo, TMJ4 News.
Just like that type of like ongoing recovery that child's going to have to go through. And I mean, throughout the rest of her life, she's going to be dealing with, the ramifications of that attack. It's not going to be something she'll be able to ever just, walk away from. Literally, she's she had to learn to walk again. And that, man. So they're saying, yeah, it started. Court is on a short break. We've heard a handful of victims that have had a chance to speak, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure you guys know we're not missing anything here. So I'll throw this up. And here we go. So yeah, court is still on a short break while we're figuring out what happened there. While we're doing that, I'm trying to give you guys some context, some content here while we're that was an old report. You guys, this is before the trial. This was shortly after this happened. This was obviously that child was still going through recovery for for the attack. So also infamous. D, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, the video was from earlier last year or later. It's from about a year ago. So while we're in here, I'm going to give you guys this. I've got some But just to give you guys a reminder of what we dealt with from Darrell Brooks, this was one day, and I'll give you guys this one here. This was from one day of Darrell Brooks in court. This was from one day.
I've taken the jury out at this point to admonish you that any further mumbling under your breath or not recognizing when I uphold or sustain an objection, that I will take as a disrupting interruption meant to disrupt the proceedings. I'm not holding you in contempt. I'm well aware that that's one of my options. I choose not to do it for the reasons that I've stated on the record previously. All right, you can forfeit your right to be present at any point in time during this trial by your conduct under Illinois versus Allen. When it is disruptive, when it does not follow the simple rules of courtesy and decorum, I draw your attention once again to SCR Chapter 62, which has been previously provided to you, which is under the statute there. These constant mumbling and interruptions during the proceedings. I haven't made a record of them today, but I will now. Started at 9:01, then there was 5 at 9:02, 3 at 9:03, 4 at 9:04, 1 at 9:05, 2 at 9:05, 1 at 9:06, 3 at 9:08, again at 9:17, 9:27, 10:31, 1:05, there was talking over by you at 2:03, 5 interruptions at 2:14, 2:15, 2:17, at 2:19, audible muttering, 2:31, 2:33, what I would describe as inappropriate, like muttering under your breath, 2:35, at 3:06, there was a hilarious comment, at 3:11, there was what I would describe as arguing about the muttering and the irony of it all. At 3:12, there were 4 interruptions. At 3:37, more 4:09, 4:10, more mumbling. At 4:11, twice, and at 4:12, 9 different times. So I think I've made an ample record of the disruptions today. I've been abundantly patient with you.
So, I mean, that was just one day. That was one day in court with this clown. There was, like, and that wasn't even the full day. So, yeah, Becky G, this is the live court right here. The live coverage is, what you're seeing on screen right now is the court cam. So it's not currently happening at the moment. This is, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. We do have, this was from the vigil last year that we went to. Let me do this for you guys here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up and give you guys a look at some, kind of like what was going on with the vigil just this last year with the Waukesha Parade attack. And like I said, it was powerful. It was intense. And if this gives you any grief or any problems, I'll make sure to adjust it, guys. But I'm not sure how long this break is going to be. So to make sure you don't go away and not come back for what's going to happen for the rest of the the court proceedings for today. So
Oh, we bumped the button. It was a mistake. Yeah. Tell him. Yeah, he'll go live again.
I'm live right now.
You're going right now?
I'm live right now.
Oh, he's going.
yeah, so this was at the Waukesha Parade vigil. Now this is before we heard that the young man had passed away. That Jackson Sparks had passed. We found out at the vigil that he had passed away. And you'll see that there's only initially there's only 5 crosses that are up here, and then of course they had to add another. And it it was, they had some they did a lot of prayers, and they had some speakers that came on and spoke. Um, and it was, they had these outreach animals too, a whole pack of these dogs that were like emotional support animals. It was actually pretty touching that they had. But I mean, beyond that, there was a massive amount of people at the park there. It was huge. It was really huge. Man, yeah, we have no idea what's going on in court right now. It's just they took an abrupt cut to a short break. And I'm not sure why or what was going on with that. But yeah, just so you know, court is not currently live at the moment. So don't worry, you're not missing anything. People are asking in the comments, Barbara asking, did his mother let him take the car? Did he just, or what happened there? Yeah, I'm not really sure. But I believe as we go through this a little bit, we get to a point where we find out about Jackson Sparks.
Thank you. So everything's comfort dogs. I think we're gonna actually go. There's another vigil going on this evening that I think we're gonna try to get to. But yeah, I want a big shout out to the city of Waukesha Parks and Rec Department for helping facilitate this happening, and all the congregations that were involved in in the prayers and the presentation.
Law enforcement officers, I know what they do.
So Cindy, that's a confirmation on Jackson.
They're my right hand, not their right hand.
The 7-year-old.
Yeah, they're going. The mom was going to. They were going to say their goodbyes.
But I think
So I'd also one of the young people that was struck by the name of Jackson. Apparently, it was just too much for his little body to take, and his mom, they're heading to say their final goodbyes to their son Jackson. So you guys have put a lot of your thoughts and prayers out to that family and to that little soldier.
Yeah, he had been fighting. He was in critical care, critical condition for about 24 hours, and
They said there's 5 here,
and then they were getting ready to take him off of life support. I believe is what happened in that moment.
They were in the ICU.
That moment for me was a break point. I realized there was only so much heaviness that we could see. So I can't imagine what the people that were this community and the families and many of the victims that we're going to see. Okay, so we're getting an update. There was a bomb threat apparently. Courtroom has been cleared.
Calls of threats to police there. How many people were out here?
Okay.
I feel like the entire town of Waukesha came through in support of the victims of last night's attack. I appreciate you guys all joining us here as well. I know there's people all over the world that have been on the feed tonight watching, and all those prayers and love mean a lot. I know not just to the community here, but to each other out there that are mourning with these folks here. So.
I'm just taking a look on here to see what's going on with the
No, I'm on a live stream.
Oh, are you Mason by chance?
No, I'm CJ.
CJ?
Yeah, I do a show called CJ TV.
Okay. All right.
I'm not seeing anything else that's popping up here about
Last I heard, they were still accepting donations at the Children's Hospital for blood donations if you're in the area or in the area of the Children's Hospital.
Okay, so
I have a moment of prayer here, I think.
James.
Oh, it's a picture. Is it a picture?
So
You're welcome to join us.
we're gonna go ahead and 1 second here. This was so you guys know what's happening. This was the moment that the court had to cut over. So
Break for a second, please. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's important.
All right, thank you. We'll do that.
So yeah, that's all we knew. That's and then the bewildered. Well, that's not an uncommon look that we see from him. That bewildered. I don't know what's going on look. But that's all that we know. It wasn't anything crazy that popped off. But that was the moment that the court was. We're not done with victim statements. Not even not close. We still have quite a bit to go. They've only gone through I want to say 7 or 8 so far, and then we're going to go ahead and this is it just blows my mind, man. Like I'm trying to keep you guys caught up on what we're seeing here, but find out exactly what's happening. If there is anything, DA Opera just stopped everything. Told the judge they needed to take a break. I'm sorry, it's important. We've been told that the judge left the courtroom and the deputies rushed out. There hasn't been, as I'm seeing, any follow up as to what is going on with that here right now. And I'm gonna keep it on the look here for you guys. Let's see if we got this here for us here. Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing any updates as of right now that are anything happening at the moment. So we're doing okay there. We're not missing anything. We're not they're not out. Court's not back in session. We're good there. So all's good. Yeah, let's take these victims, man. So we've got, like I said, DA Opera. So Nancy over here says, there you go. That's good statement to put up there. So we're now in a 30-minute recess. We've been in for a little bit now, so we're creeping about halfway through that. DA Sue Opera appears to have been noticed something. The bailiff ran to the front of the court, whispered to the judge. This is right after Jin Dunn, with victim's assistance, read a statement on behalf of a child. Opera would not comment to me in the hallway. Oh, Nancy, you're there right now. Nancy, are you able to go live? Nancy Parsons. Here, let me go ahead and reach out to you real fast. Yeah, let's see if we can't bring yeah. There we go. Yeah, let me, we're gonna see if, Nancy, if you're with us right now, I just sent you a message. Would you go ahead and write me back? Threats were made to the courthouse. Yes, they're saying the threats were made to the courthouse. You guys might hear like the the old waterfall here because we've got oh, Nancy was just reporting. Okay, what Bruce Harris reported. Okay. Well, good. Nancy, never mind. Don't worry about that. We're okay. No worries there. Let's so it doesn't sound like well, we're just going to deal with a little bit of a whooshing sound. So I'm going to give you guys kind of a running update as to what's going on right now. And so what we're seeing is, let me zoom in on this here. We got some of the notes from the courtroom. It's not packed. They've organized victims into 4 groups. Each group, about a dozen or so, are present at once in courtroom. So they're bringing them in stages. The rest are waiting in special rooms to watch and watching the hearing. This was a says the courtroom was cleared after calls were placed to dispatch this morning. Some kind of threats, according to Sheriff's Department. But an officer tells me we're safe to continue business. We can expect a press release. They brought this guy into the building. So they brought in someone from a TAC team to, and you can see the snow in the background there, guys. It definitely is cold out. You know, it's definitely, it's happening out there. So that's those are the most recent updates we've got from the courtroom right now. Compliments of, thank you, Bruce Harrison, reporter from TMJ4. He's out there right now covering live the trial in court and out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So thank you for that. And then we got, let's go here and see what we've got going here. So we'll see if they have anything live to update here for us. And I'm not sure if you guys are seeing everything I'm seeing here, but you're not. So let's remove that. We'll see what's going on here. Whole process here, guys. Whole process. But again, we are not back in session yet, so don't worry about that. I'll definitely make sure we get pulled back in as soon as that happens. So I'm just going to give you guys kind of we'll take a look at this real quick because it's just a kind of an update of what's going on from the courtroom. So from court right now, as it is. And here we go. And here we go. So we got 1 second here. Listen to the sound of my voice.
In Waukesha, as the final chapter in the Darrell Brooks trial begins this morning inside the Waukesha County Courthouse behind me.
This is just a
Today,
recap of
Brooks
what's
will
going
hear
on
from
today.
dozens of families and victims of the Waukesha Christmas Parade tragedy. The impact statements are expected to be read over 2 days before Judge Jennifer Doro hands down Brooks's sentence. Now, Brooks was convicted on 6 counts of intentional homicide after he drove his SUV through the crowd. Each count carries a mandatory life sentence. Brooks's mother and grandmother tell TMJ4 they plan to speak over Zoom. Brooks will also have a chance to address the court himself. Sentencing scheduled to last today and tomorrow and again begin at 8:30 this morning here at the courthouse. For legal analysis this morning, we bring in our local legal defense attorney, Jonathan Lavoie. Jonathan's with us via Zoom this morning. Jonathan, thanks for being with us. So let's first start out here with kind of what happens in the courtroom behind me. What are the procedures that they're going to go through during this process?
So the victims are all going to get a chance to address Mr. Brooks directly today. It's going to be an incredibly emotional day. They're going to be able to say to Mr. Brooks how this affected themselves and their families and their circumstances. So they're going to be able to address the court right on the stand today.
So we know that the counts here and carry life sentences. So what kind of decision does the judge have to make, whether they're consecutive or concurrent? Does that even make a difference if they're life sentences?
No, the sentencing hearing probably isn't going to make much difference to Mr. Brooks today. I think this is all about the victims. This is about their opportunity to address the court and to really have the last word. Mr. Brooks had a lot of words during this trial, had a lot of stuff to say during the trial, but today the victims can look him in the eye and tell him what they did to him. And this is really about them today.
And do you think, I know he has the opportunity to speak as well. This is an opportunity for him to maybe show remorse. I know in his closing argument, he talked about showing remorse a little bit and being forgiven for his own sins as he's come closer to God, he said. But he has a chance to speak, correct?
Absolutely. He'll have a chance to speak directly to everyone. As far as what he's going to say is anyone's guess. I expect it's going to be more about him. He's going to be talking about how this affected him and his family. What he really needs to do is talk to the victims about what he did to them. But you know, the judge today isn't going to let him act the way he did during the trial. So today, he's going to have to stick to just about what happened in the case and his remorse and those types of things. But it's going to be a strange circumstance, and we'll see what he says today.
And as we wrap up, I know you've been in courtrooms during victim impact statements. What is the feeling inside of a courtroom, especially in a case like this where there's so many victims?
Today is going to be incredibly emotional. I think we're going to see and hear from children today. I think you're going to be able to cut the tension with a knife because these individuals have sat this last year not been able to really talk, but today's their chance to get into court and talk to the judge and talk to Mr. Brooks. So I think it's going to be very emotional today.
Yeah, more than 40 people expected to give victim impact statements, 9 of them children, according to the district attorney here in Waukesha County. Jonathan Lavoie, we thank you for analysis today and throughout this trial. We appreciate it.
I'm muted. I just realized. It's ridiculous. You guys, I'm the worst with the mute button. It's almost appropriate. Tanisha, I see you were making the call. And immediately I was like, I'm sure I'm muted. I'm positive that I've done something stupid. So there's no audio because I try to keep you guys from the surround sound here, you know, the ambient noise that I've got over here. So my apologies. What I was saying was that as of about 10 minutes ago, the Waukesha County Sheriff's Office said that there were some threats, in quotes, came into the courthouse causing the recess, but then followed up and said that everyone inside is safe. They should be getting ready to go back to business here within the next, like, if they're really taking just a quick 30, which it's hard to know. Then you know, we'll be back in here in just a few minutes. Yeah, I know I muted myself, guys. We should be good now. Yeah. I just want to keep you guys turn the volume up so when you do, I can come at you loud. Um, yeah, no, it's not the mic. It's well, I've been traveling a lot, you guys. I've been between Washington and Wisconsin and bouncing around a lot, and so it's been a lot of it's just having to get a mobile setup going everywhere I go, and kind of it's been tough to keep it all running. So. Um, Okay. So let me see here. Yeah, his look of bewilderment, right? Like that was, yeah, we're still not back in session yet, so we're good there. What I thought was interesting was his mother, though, what she had to say, and let me go show you that real quick. This is her responding to the verdict after after that was read.
It sounds like you want to be an advocate for people need to understand mental illness.
No reports on what the
Understand
threat was.
people who are mentally ill are hurting. They're trapped. And a lot of them don't know the way I will show compassion to families who have loved ones that are suffering from mental illness. A lot of them are ashamed to even talk about it or to say that he's crazy and don't want to have anything to do with them. But you
A lot, and it's
need
heavy.
to, those people need help more than anything. Seek out treatment where there is. Speak up for them. Be an advocate for them. And then when you see people out in the street, you see them acting, and you just laugh at them, joking, and you turn away. Stop and say a prayer, because I sent Darrell early on a poem written by Maya Angelou called "I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings." And I learned that poem in the 7th grade for Black History Month. And I never thought about that poem again. And the Lord brought it to my memory. And I remember back when I was a child, my grandma had a pet parakeet named Jerry. And I remember that so vividly. She would walk to the cage and Jerry would sing. He had a beautiful singing voice. And we all thought Jerry was happy because he would sing and twerk, and his cage was right in front of the window where he can look out in the backyard. And we thought, but then when Lord brought that point to me, I pulled it up again and I read it again. And I realized that bird wasn't singing because it was happy. That bird was singing because he wanted to be out of that cage and be free. And I told Darrell, I said, you're this caged bird. Mental illness has clipped your wings, and those Christmas birds is going to be your cage. And, no one's going to hear you singing. It's going to fall from their ears. But I told him that, he keeps singing till someone hears him. Hopefully, this will bring awareness to mental illness via our senators and our governors and elected officials, court, police. And when these people come before the penal system, instead of locking them up, say, hey, what can we do to help this person become mentally well? That's what needs to happen. Do you think he can get help in No. Very little help is done for individuals who are incarcerated with mental illness. That's why I wanted him to go to a hospital where he can still get treatment, but that won't be, he would be behind prison where he would not get any services. If he does, it would be very little and it would not be what he needs.
So it sounds like you don't think it was fair what he received today.
No.
But you think he should have done any prison time?
Yes.
Will you be at sentencing to support?
No. 'Cause I already know.
Too hard to watch.
Too hard to watch. You know. I mean, what's to say? You know. We have to move forward. You know.
I mean, she should watch it. He was evaluated and found mentally competent to
Something good.
not just
How do you feel right now?
be held
now, I just want to curl
to be
up
put on
and
trial,
die.
but also to defend himself. So
That's how I feel right now. I just want to go somewhere. Just curl up. But I can't.
well, I mean, here's the thing. I'm gonna say this, and you guys, I'll play the medium for all things. A mother's love is a mother's love. You can't look past that. You know, we can all feel we feel. I don't know the backstory for Darrell Brooks' mother, Dawn Woods. I don't know what got what got things to where they are for Darrell Brooks. I know that Darrell Brooks is a grown man. What his life, from the time he was 17, was set in course and doing what he did. He's obviously figured out that he's not accountable for any of his actions, and he figured that out very early on. And then he spent his time in court or in the criminal system, dancing through things, not getting the full leverage. For any of the crimes that he committed. I think collectively he only did about 3 years, which he should have been spending well over 30 years. And just to give you an idea, and if you weren't a part of any of the back end of, if you haven't been watching the show with us, which is okay, I get it. There's been a lot happening. One of the things that here, I'll read this real quick, and this I think is pretty profound, because what we're talking about with this is the fact that kind of the history of Darrell Brooks and what got him to where he's at now. A lot of people want to blame his mother. It's Ashley Cartier says, my only job as a parent is to provide. Sorry, just get past it. Is to provide love, shelter, food, and education, and to ensure they become functional, stable adults. Yeah. But I mean, sometimes you guys, these adults that come out of the children are just the what they were going to become. You know what I mean? Whether or not a parent was there to be the person they were. Granted, and I can't take this away, and please don't take this any further than what I'm saying, because I know there's so many children that were left without the attention they needed and deserved, and should have been afforded from the time they're born, to their own devices and figuring their own way through life out. And that's a child's version of how to live life, and that's going to be convoluted, and that's going to be confused and basic and rudimentary at best. But it's a lot of times that goes into just survival mode. I'm not speaking about Darrell Brooks. He's a world-class human garbage bag, and I care less about him or anything that happens in his life. I really do look forward to him getting hit with all the life sentences and sitting in jail until in prison until the prison deals with him. Which, as we know, with anything in prison. Anybody who knows anybody who's been to prison, they'll talk pretty openly about the fact that the internal prison politics in the prison policing amongst prisoners is pretty stringent. So someone who's going to go in there as not just a child rapist, but as a mass murderer and a killer of kids, they don't have they don't have that quality of life that I think some people assume prisons afford all people, because that person will never walk a general population yard, will never be in a situation where they're going to be able to generally socialize with people. They're not even going to be able to go to like the medical call, go like if they have toothache or, they got, bronchitis, they need to go to the doctor in the prison. They can't even do that without looking over both shoulders and walking backwards at best, because there's a chance someone might cross paths with them there. And with how high profile he is, and how much he's done to make sure that this case gets all the attention it gets, anybody and everybody's going to know about him in there. And mind you guys, felons have kids too, exactly. Lady Kate. And I guarantee that Wisconsin is a big state, mind you. There's a handful of correctional facilities here in the state of Wisconsin, but it's a small community. I'll say that. Wisconsin knows each other. And I've said this family up in Green Bay, and it just seems like no matter where you go in Wisconsin, people know people from Wisconsin. Big shout out to everybody here in Wisconsin who's going through this. But they know who he is. I guarantee there's not a prison in Wisconsin right now that hasn't had that TV playing, that hasn't been watching this case, that doesn't know his face, hasn't watched him. And I'm sure there's some that are like, yeah, get him, Darrell, give him the business. And there's those others that are friends and or family to the people that were hurt out of the 77 people that were hit and or injured or hurt or killed in this attack, that are related to or some way connected to those people. And those people that are in the correctional facility already, maybe they're already doing life. Maybe they're already looking at 30, 40 years, the rest of their life in prison. They don't care. They're looking for a chance to feel like they've done something effective and productive with their time of incarceration. And if that means crossing paths with someone like Darrell Brooks in the yard, at a medic call, at intake, and transfer, and whatever it is, if they get a chance to do something there, to feel like they've done something effectively for their family or for the people of Wisconsin or for themselves, then I feel like probably where things are going to go. So I think I don't know if you guys just heard that. I think an alarm was going on, but there was just this crazy sound in my headphones. Anyway, so yeah, the prisons are going to take care of what they have to take care of. Griffin says, I hate kids. I have 4 of them. Yeah, right? But you love them. And we do. Children, are the most primary of people. The most focal asset that we could possibly have as a society that we have to take care of. We have to look out for. And no matter what your dilemma in life, no matter what your situation, no matter how bad you have it as an adult, that's not your right and or human function to ever direct that to a child. That's on you. Be an adult, handle your shit, grow it up, manage it, function it, wrangle it, get therapy, do whatever you can do. But when you have people like Darrell Brooks that feel like it's okay to project that onto the world around them, including children, including his own children, and now his grandchildren, it's the legacy of lunacy is what it is. And it builds this crazy platform of dysfunction. You know what I mean? And it blows me away that people, we collectively are in a situation now where we see these teen idols and people that our kids are looking at, because they're missing, I think, a lot of heroes, and they're looking at rappers and people that are just, a decay to I guess the moral fiber, if you will, of our children. And I'm not saying that because I feel like there's one direction the kid has to go or another. That's not what I'm saying. I think all children are meant to live a beautiful life of creativity and whatever that facet may be. Right? So, because this is where I walk right down the line. I'm a humanitarian, and I believe that people, whatever they need to do to live a good life, a happy life, a productive, a life that helps their soul grow and nurtures the development of their being, phenomenal, so long as that doesn't infringe on someone else's. And that's where lines get crossed, is when your life, not all rappers, Jacqueline, no, there's some that are incredibly positive, but when your life has overstretched your bounds, now reaches into somebody else's existence and is now negatively impacting them because of your views and your beliefs, now you've crossed the line, because you've not just stepped out of your boundaries, but you stepped over somebody else's. And you can't force somebody or browbeat somebody into believing what you believe or thinking how you think. All you can do is educate them as to how and why you feel the way and think the way you do, and then say it's okay. You do you, I'll do me. That's what it is. So, but end of the day, though, everyone's going to be who they're going to be. Darrell Brooks is exactly who he is, and the thing is, the accountability factor, I think, needs to be wagered in. That he needs to be accountable for everything he's done. And there's nobody that can be blamed. And this is where, full circle, we can't even look at his mother for blame. You know, because she's not going to sit in jail with him. She's not doing that. 100% on him. He needs to sit there and be accountable for everything he's done. His mother is checked out. She's done. But I heard someone say you have the first 20 years of your life to let for your parents to mess you up. Then you have the next 20 years of your life to figure it out and fix it, you know, as an adult. And Darrell's definitely into the latter of those two stages. You know, he's now, I believe, 40, turned 40 in jail. You know, it just needs to happen. Yeah, so, and there's a lot of things that are coming in. Yeah, Abdul, there's a lot of crazy stories that are happening right now. So should his kids be out to death so she can know how they feel? I just don't understand this line. His kids be out. I'm not sure. Most some pictures of Brooks of his kids and grandkids as they were from his ex Erica. Oh yeah, so we were talking about what happened with those pictures, which was crazy. When she was claiming hardcore, but like, no, definitely those are from her. Yeah, so he's got his he's prison's not going to be a friendly, happy place for him. So as of 3 minutes ago, court tells me they will be resuming shortly. Unclear if Judge Darrell will address specifics of what's going on. There is no serious alarm in the building, though, at the courthouse. Everyone's calm. People are there for the sentencing, are waiting calmly in the halls outside of the courtroom. It seems like the guys in helmets, vests with long guns are present out of an abundance of caution. So that's good. That's good to hear. And they will be resuming here very shortly. So that's also good to hear. There was I was going to give you guys a quick background here on Darrell Brooks. And we've read through this before, but if you weren't sure, of the man we're dealing with Darrell Brooks, right? So, you know, this is the way it starts. In 99, he was 17. Brooks was charged with substantial battery with intent to inflict substantial bodily harm. That's a Class E felony punishable by up to 15 years in prison. Now keep track. I want you guys, while I'm reading this, to keep track of the sentencing guidelines based off of what that could hold. And actually, while we're doing this, let me give you guys the court. I don't want anyone getting any FOMO or fear of missing out to the labor here, and make sure that everybody knows what we got going here. So there we go. Okay, cool. So yeah, just so you know, this is a live feed right now. Everything's good. Everything's cool. They're not back in session yet, but they will be. Cindy, could you ask her if she'd be willing to go live with us for a quick minute, please? There was a threat called into the court of some type. The threat's been cleared. There's no immediate threat to anybody there. There's no real danger. They should be getting back in pretty quick to session. Back to what I was saying here. So we've got what do we got here? Yeah. So back to, okay. So 99. So up to 15 years. Pay attention to the sentencing guidelines here, because it's important to realize just how much time he hasn't had to do in the grand course of his criminal spree, if you will. So as we look at it here, so Class E felony for charge with substantial battery, Class E, up to 15 years in prison. After he pleaded guilty, though, Judge Gordon sentenced Brooks to just 3 years of probation after 6 months in the House of Correction. Mind you, 17, so minor house correction, I guess, is like a juvenile detention facility. While he was on probation, he was convicted of a second offense, possession of THC, whatever, and sentenced to 50 days in the House of Correction. Again, almost as soon as he was released, he was convicted of resisting an officer. That's a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to 9 months in jail. So we have 15 years, possible 15 years and 9 months. Despite the THC conviction just months earlier and the fact that he was still on probation for the substantial battery conviction, Judge Geringer sentenced him to just 20 days. Obviously, he was feeling strong about himself at this point. So the young Brooks was again charged with resisting or obstructing an officer in 2005. This time, the Manitowoc County, I think I got that one right, Manitowoc County, in Manitowoc County. After his arrest, the court commissioner, Copa, freed him on a $300 signature bond, and Brooks failed to appear for a hearing. No surprise there. They immediately issued a bench warrant for Brooks, and he had already taken off for Nevada, and this is where he steps up his criminal activity, where he was convicted in 2006, just a year later, of statutory sexual seduction and or rape of a child after impregnating a 15-year-old girl. And as his track record would show, he served just 14 months in prison and was released in 2008. So, and while he was in prison, he did a little stint in a documentary about methamphetamines called Dark Crystals. And I can even show you guys that here in a minute, his little stint in that documentary. Mind you, now they're stacking up. He did 14 months. Had the girl been 14, just a couple months younger, he would have done 30 years, 35 years, I believe, in the state of Nevada for rape of a 14-year-old. 15 apparently carries different sentencing guidelines, but he was still hit with the statutory rape in 2006. Now, registered sex offender. Well, a sex offender, not registered. The following year, he returned to Wisconsin and was back in Manitowoc County after the courthouse, after an 2005, the resisting charge. Even though Brooks had fled the state and got himself convicted of a serious child sex crime, Court Commissioner Raymond Grieg inexplicably set bail at just $100. Yeah, $100. Brooks predictably posted a $100 bail and then failed to show up for another hearing. Another bench warrant was issued. After Brooks was convicted, Judge Willis sentenced Brooks to just 2 days in jail and ordered him to pay a fine, of which you don't have to guess, he never paid. In 2010, Brooks was charged in Wood County with felony strangulation and suffocation. Now, this is with previous convictions and misdemeanors, counts of battery and criminal damage to property. And after a no contest plea, Judge Wolf sentenced Brooks, who faced more than a decade in prison at this point, minus the 15 that he could have hit for the first one, to just 3 years probation and 90 days in jail. So 90 days, 3 months in jail, and 3 years of probation, which could have been up to a decade in prison. Didn't happen. Following year, Brooks was for the third time charged with resisting arrest in Milwaukee, and in a terrifying bit of foreshadowing, turned his car on and shifted to drive while an officer had him pulled over, prompting that officer to believe Brooks would try to run him over. So he used his car as a weapon with an officer in a traffic stop. Although he was still on probation from the Wood County case and had several prior convictions for resisting arrest and had several times failed to appear on prior criminal charges, Court Commissioner Cedric Cornwall freed Brooks on a $1,000 signature bond. When he was eventually convicted after a plea deal, Judge Nelson Phillips sentenced Brooks to just 37 days in jail. And most people spend that much time in jail just waiting to get to court. 37 days, at that point, you get in front of the judge, you're released. Like, oh, you've been here for, 41 days it took you to get here. We'll sentence you to, or 37 days, what they would say at that point. Well, good, time served, you're out of here. The conviction didn't prompt authorities in Wood County to revoke his probation, but his Wood County probation was revoked, but Brooks was sentenced to just 11 months in jail for the strangulation with the prior conviction, because like you said, all these things are carrying over and pending, which is crazy. In 2016, Brooks was then charged again with failing to comply with Nevada sex offender registry. Like I said, he's a sex offender, just not registered. For the past 8 years, he initially posted bail, but then failed to appear in court, and at some point skipped town and moved back to Wisconsin from Nevada. Although the state law here in Wisconsin requires you to register as a sex offender within 10 days of his arrival, he, of course, never did. All told, between the ages of 17 and 34, Brooks was convicted of more than a dozen crimes, including several serious felonies, of which there was sexual assault of a child, but served less than 3 years behind bars. Less than 3 years behind bars for over a dozen crimes, and of which those included sexual assault of a child. In 2020 of July, Brooks was charged with 2 felony counts of second-degree recklessly endangering safety through the use of a firearm and 1 count of felony possession of a firearm by a felon after he allegedly fired at his nephew and his nephew's friend during a party. He took shots at his nephew and his buddy at a family get-together, apparently. Bail was set at $10,000. Get this, though. But 2 weeks later, he demanded a speedy trial because, as we all know, back in 2020, what was going on? Our friend Durand, right? Because of courtroom closures, Milwaukee County Circuit Court system was unable to grant his speedy trial, and Judge David Feist lowered his bail from $10,000 to $7,500. In February of 21, it's a couple months later, a handful of months later, speedy trial request was still unable to be granted, so the judge lowered his bail again to just $500. So $500, and he's out of jail on a charge of 2 felony counts of second-degree recklessly endangering safety through the use of a firearm and 1 count of felony possession of a firearm by a felon. We're talking about a felon with a firearm who was shooting at people. This is crazy. And so now his bail's at $500. Brooks posted that 3 weeks later, walked out. Following month, Brooks was in court in Waukesha County on a child support case that dated back to 2004. Brooks had for years refused to pay child support, and while the Waukesha County District Attorney's Office asked for a contempt of court finding and jail time, Court Commissioner Daniel Reich stayed a 120-day jail sentence pending Brooks' payment of support. So basically, he said, "Hey, man, we're going to not send you to jail for 120 days. Just pay your fine, man. We'll be good." And if you, Daniel Reich, if you happen to be listening, I'm not trying to be pejorative, man. This is just narrative of what I'm seeing from the track record of what we're experiencing with Darrell Brooks here, between the commissioners, the judges, and the system. So far, it looks like he's been able to dance and slip through cracks left and right through the course of his criminal history. Now we're now into 2021 at this point, guys. So hold on. 2 months later, on May 27th of 21, Brooks was arrested in Union City, Georgia, on yet another domestic violence charge after a man at a motel reported hearing Brooks repeatedly beating a woman. The following day, he was released, yet on another signature bond, basically a hope for good intentions, personal recognizance, saying, "Hey, I'll come back for court. I'll be here." Mind you, he's in Georgia. He has sexual assault of a child in Nevada, and he's got warrants in Wisconsin. And in Georgia, they were like, "All right, well, man, as long as you come back." All these warrants were for failure to appear and whatnot. So he took off, came back to Wisconsin. That November, just 16 days before the massacre, Brooks was charged with running over his girlfriend's leg during an argument at a gas station using that same red SUV that he drove through the crowd in. He faced felony counts of second-degree recklessly endangering safety and bail jumping, as well as misdemeanor charges of resisting or obstructing an officer and domestic abuse, battery, and disorderly conduct. His 2020 shooting case was still open, but Assistant District Attorney Carol Manchester recommended just a $1,000 cash bail. Court Commissioner Cedric Cornwall agreed, and Brooks posted and was released on November 16th, just 5 days before the killing spree. Now, this is where his mother steps in. She's the one that posted that bail for $1,000. And what she said was that she had talked to his girlfriend, and this happens a lot with the battered wife syndrome, things of that nature, where these victims end up kind of wavering on their account and or the charges against their assailant, and especially in domestic situations. And so she was like, "No, he didn't mean to do it. It wasn't intentional. He didn't do it." And that's why his mother felt like he needed to be released from jail. And then after, of course, the events of November 2021, she then said she wished she wouldn't have posted bail, but she felt that because of what his girlfriend said, that's why she posted the bail. And the same day he appeared before Waukesha County Court Commissioner David Herring for child support non-payment, Prosecutors demanded that Brooks be immediately jailed, but Herring issued a stay and released Brooks on his own recognizance, meaning he didn't have to pay a penny to secure his release. So on that day, with all of these things pending, we're talking about the shooting case, the battery, the assault, the obstructing an officer of the law, felony count of second-degree recklessly endangering safety, the bail jumping. All of these things are looming overhead, and he's still told by a court commissioner that he's good, man. Just let him go. He promises that he's going to pay eventually. So we're going to give him his own recognizance and let him leave. 5 days later, after all of this, Brooks hops in the driver's seat of that red SUV, beats up his girlfriend again, slaps around and punches another girl, her roommate at the shelter, the women's shelter she was living at, and then proceeds to speed away from that encounter and drive his car through the Waukesha Parade, killing 6 people and injuring over 60 others. I mean, it really says it that, for more than 2 decades, he committed serious crimes with little, if any, serious consequences ever imposed on him. And it's sad, but instead of that, he got leniency, and all the consequences were imposed on us and the community of Waukesha and everyone else. And now we're been watching this, psychopath with his ramblings in court, just how crazy he can possibly be, without being actually crazy, just being able to be as in his element as he wants to be in the situation where he has taken so many people out of theirs. And it's sad. So I feel that this today and tomorrow are incredibly important for our justice system. I feel that we as a people need to see this through. We need to watch this through. We need to make sure that we are aware of the fact that the leniency and the things that have happened throughout the course of Darrell Brooks' life got him to a point where he was able to do what he did. And the blame is on him, 100%. But I feel that there is a burn on our justice system as a whole that allowed this person to skate through the system the way they did. And I'm talking personally from someone who went through the system, and you take accountability and you run the course, and you full accountability for the crimes you committed, and you deal with it. That's what you do. And you own it. It's all about owning it. And it's wild that you've got someone like this who now is back in the courts that he was in just days before and facing, the sentencing for mass murder in that same community. And then, and you're right, Gary Waters says, why is rap music so obsessed with killing, drugs, guns, and anger? And more important, why are parents allowing young children to listen to it? It's destroying our youth one by one. And you guys, we've seen this. We've seen this time and time again, where these icons, these people that are icons, and even the ones that we hold so highly in such great regard and esteem, like our Will Smiths, to make a very minimal aspect of what I'm talking about here. Even that, you know what I mean? Someone that with the credibility and respect that Will Smith has can't handle someone making a joke on stage and still has to run up and assault somebody. You know what I mean? And but I'm talking about the things that are piped into our children daily, and if anything, this, I hope, is something that they'll be able to see as the cause and the effect and the results of this whole thing. See it through. And I hope they say it, man. I hope that these children that are aware of what's going on here, that were privy to this case, that were there, that witnessed it, hopefully they feel like when they see these things, they're going to step in and say, you know what, I'm going to do things differently. I don't want to see a place where we have to worry about people like this. And so I'm gonna make a change. So Mark Newman, you ask, have you asked any federal agents why they can't charge him as a domestic terrorist? And it looks like we're back in session, so we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But let me go ahead and turn on the audio for that, if there has any. Okay. There's no audio yet in the courtroom, but it looks like they are back in court. And we'll get to some questions here in a little bit. No, I haven't, because he did say he was sovereign. He didn't believe in our customs. He doesn't believe in the courts. He doesn't believe that I think the way, and there's so many different sovereign beliefs, but one of them is that they feel that the federal court is jurisdictional. The state courts have no rights over people like Darrell Brooks. And so, and we're seeing it. You guys were seeing it. Volume up. Yeah, no, there's no volume in the courtroom. This is just, so just to be clear, I'm going to make sure you guys know that. No volume. There we go. But they will here in a moment. So let me double check for updates on that threat that was called in. So, and that's what it was. It was a threat that was called into the courthouse. They've cleared the threat, and it looks like they are now getting ready to start court back up. But they did say they cleared the threat, and we're not sure if Judge Darrell is going to actually speak about or address what happened with the threat that was called in. Yeah, so just keep in mind, guys, no matter what, change my jacket. Oh yeah, Christmas. Yeah, good call, good call. No matter what, we're looking at 2 days in court anyway. So without the delay, the anonymous threat, we already know that sentencing is going to take 2 days. 15th and 16th is what it's scheduled for. The judge said even if they get through all statements, both sides, she wants the night to weigh all of it before rendering her sentence. So if we do get through everything today, we're still going to have to wait for the judge to go back and wagering to the grand scale of it all, what she's going to do as per sentencing, because she's looks like we do have volume. Okay, what's going on over here? My bad. Let me or maybe they don't. Let me anyone in the comments want to go ahead and let me know what is the story here. I want to make sure we're not missing.
We can go forward.
There we go.
I know when we took that break, right before that, Jen Dunn was.
Sorry, guys. We're back in. Share the stream.
Statement from one of the juvenile victims, and there was a picture that was referenced. I would like to make a request for that picture to be made part of the record.
Thank you, Judge. We had anticipated that as well. We're prepared to display that at this time on the monitor.
And then will that be filed?
Yes, I can file that.
All right, go ahead.
So again, this is the note and drawing by victim KKK.
Can you tell me the age of KKK?
8 years old.
Thank you very much. Were you completed with that statement, Ms. Dunn?
I am completed with victim KKK's statement, and you can now see the drawing that was made by that victim on the bottom of his statement.
Thank you very much.
Next, I do have the statement of the mother of victim KKK and LLL to read for the court. I am not sure how or where to begin to try and put into words how November 21st of 2021 has impacted my life or my family's life. That was a night that I pray I could forget, say it has not broken me, say that I am stronger than a single moment, and move beyond as if it never happened. But unfortunately, as much as I try, this is something that haunts me daily. Our lives forever changed that evening. Mr. Brooks took an evening that was supposed to be filled with excitement, love, and holiday spirit and turned it into a real-life nightmare. November 21st of 2021, I witnessed the most horrific event I could ever have imagined leaving my house that evening.
My children at the time of the parade were 11, victim LLL, 9, victim KKK, and 6, innocent, full of life, love, compassion, and excitement for the holidays. That evening, Mr. Brooks stripped this from my children, leaving them physically hurt, scared, angry, confused, traumatized, and forever changed with the visions of what happened that night. I saw absolute fear and pain in my children's eyes they should never have had to experience in their entire life. I saw my daughter, victim LLL, lying in the road crying and yelling, "Who would do that?" I saw my son, victim KKK, flipped on his back, crying in pain, not being able to move or feel his legs. I remember knowing we weren't safe and needing to leave, telling my children to run as fast as they could, and pull or back to danger. I remember seeing parents laying on top of their children in fear and trying to protect them the best they could from what was happening. I remember sitting at every stoplight while driving my children to the hospital, trembling to the point the car was shaking. In complete fear, every car pulling up beside me was the person who hit my children. Yes, Mr. Brooks, I remember. I watched my son not be able to sit alone in a room for weeks. I watched my children not be able to sit still without being anxious and fidgeting for months. I watched my children wake up with nightmares to this day. I saw gut-wrenching guilt on my husband's face for feeling like he didn't protect his family. And to this day, I feel anger and hatred more than I realized I ever could for a person I have never even met. But aside from all of that, I am thankful. Thankful that by some miracle, my family and I walked away that evening. Although I could not attend most of the trial in person, I did view either via Zoom or on TV. I viewed everything from the pre-trial, jury selection, and trial itself, and I am disgusted that a grown man could act the way Mr. Brooks acted during all of this. Mr. Brooks claims he was raised a Christian and his mother raised him better than he was acting at the beginning of the trial, but Mr. Brooks continued to be rude, selfish, and disrespectful, from sleeping during court, endless interruptions and outbursts, rude comments, facial expressions, and lack of remorse for his actions and how he was treating everyone in court, from the prosecutors, victims, witnesses, and judge herself. I never thought Mr. Brooks could make myself or my family feel victimized all over again, but he did. I keep remembering how Mr. Brooks was upset the detective in the investigation asked to speak to one of his children. I asked myself, it's not okay to speak to his child, but it's okay to intentionally hit two of my children and drive away? That's okay? Why my children? Why any children? How could someone do this? How could someone have no compassion for the victims, the families? We deserve answers. Our children deserve answers, true and honest answers. Never once did I see true remorse for anyone but himself or his family during the trial. Mr. Brooks also stated something along the lines of, anyone who knows him or spends enough time with him knows he would never do something like that. But Mr. Brooks, you absolutely did. Mr. Brooks hit my children and so many more people and never once stopped. Not only did he kill, injure, and traumatize so many that night, he decided to victimize everyone again by forcing them to not only testify as to what happened because he felt compelled to plead not guilty, but he also forced these victims and family members, including my husband, to face the monster that did this and answer the questions he felt the need to ask. How can someone face each person on the stand, knowing what was done that night, question them as if they were the ones on trial when all of the victims and witnesses were doing that night were creating memories? Unfortunately, memories were created, but not the memories I planned to have with my children. Instead, the fear I have seeing a maroon SUV driving towards myself or my family is now paralyzing. Seeing a vehicle drive too fast down any street makes me physically sick to my stomach. My children panic at the sight of an emergency vehicle. Seeing people run and yell unexpectedly, even if just for fun, makes my heart drop, and my mind brings me back to the night of the parade, hearing the screams, yells for help, and cries from that night will haunt me until the day I die. Those are the memories I have from the night. The only good that has come from this is Mr. Brooks will never be able to hurt another person outside of prison ever again. The guilty verdict and hopefully life plus sentence will protect anyone that may have been hurt by Mr. Brooks in the future, and that I can be thankful for. Please, on behalf of myself and my family, we ask Mr. Brooks to be sentenced to the fullest extent. Mother of victim KKK and LLL. Next to speak will be victim S.
Go ahead, Mr. Brooks.
I'm taking some notes, and I was wondering, it was a little confliction there. Is victim KKK 8 or 9?
I can't answer that, sir, but that was a written statement read from the mother of victim KKK.
I apologize. I was just taking notes.
Right, go ahead.
My name's Kelly Grebo, and I was walking in the Christmas parade with my daughter, Adelia, on the 21st. I'm not one for public speaking, obviously. I'm very nervous. But I was given a chance to be the voice for my daughter, and I. That is what fueled me to stand here today. Now I can only tell you our story, but I believe the tragic events of that day have affected many of us in a similar manner. I can honestly say I have never felt the hatred I do for one person like I do this man. The very man that drove his vehicle into my 9-year-old baby girl who was excitedly walking in the Christmas parade. She was so excited to dress up that day. As Cindy Lou, who we spent weeks figuring out her costume and picking her hairstyle. She was excited to have her hair and makeup done and to help spread holiday cheer, to see her friends and her family that were there to be spectators at the parade that became witnesses to this horrible act themselves. So many lives were changed that day, although many of us, for the most part, have healed physically. Emotionally, many of us have been scarred. I have questioned whether those emotional scars will ever truly go away, remembering the roller coaster of emotions that day. And after being struck myself lying on the ground and seeing the tires pass directly in front of my face and just waiting for the pain to begin, being filled with absolute fear of not knowing where my daughter Adelia was or if she was okay, then running only to find her the way I did, the way so many of us found our loved ones that day, lying helpless on the cold, hard ground. My knees buckled the minute I got to her. Seeing my child that this so-called sorry excuse for a man ran a 3,000-pound SUV into her tiny little body. There are so many times when I close my eyes, I still see my baby girl laying in the street helpless, not moving, just staring in complete shock, not even recognizing her own grandparents when they came to her side. Seeing that look in her eyes will forever be embedded in my mind. As a parent, we are supposed to be able to protect our children, and that day many of us were reminded of the ugly in this world, that no matter what we do, there will always be monsters like Darrell Brooks that are lurking around corners, just waiting for a chance to play those parts in our nightmares. Yet even after causing this much pain and destruction, he wasn't even happy with that. He didn't stop there. He took it upon himself to be his own representation, knowing full well he would be given the chance to question us as victims and rip open the wounds once again and show no remorse. I can tell you, sitting on the stand that day, reliving the horrific events, having him look in my direction brought up so many memories and emotions of that night. Hearing his voice made me cringe with disgust and anger. He changed our Adelia that day. He stole her innocent, happy look on life and replaced it with fear and hate that no child at the now age of 10 should ever feel. Although those feelings are warranted, she was forced that day to see the ugly in this world also. And her joyous outlook on the holiday season was stolen. I'm not sure if she will ever again attend another parade, let alone a Christmas parade. I don't know when the unexplained loud noises will ever not take me back to that day and make me jump, make my heart rate increase. However, I do know every day is a new chance. We have to take back our lives and give this man no more than he has already taken. We are now stronger than we ever imagined we would have to be as a family and as a community, and that he cannot have. He does not deserve that. What Darrell Brooks does, however, deserve is to be sentenced to the maximum time allotted for each one of his horrific convictions, as he has given us as a community, a life sentence of these memories. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christy, you can bring up the first one.
Madam Clerk, we need to display, please. Thank you.
Remember, they do have visuals that they're able to show as well that are up on the easel or the video monitor. I'm not sure which one they have going right now. But. So what they have that set up, and Darrell can see that as well, or he's just watching it on his screen right there. Either way. I can't imagine what it would. I mean, like she said, not only did they have to go through him questioning them and borderline ridiculing their statements and the trauma they've already experienced, but then now, even as they're reading and trying to get through their thoughts and expression towards him, about him, to him, having to look at this guy while he's rolling his eyes and laughing and being every bit the horrible human being that we've seen for the last several weeks. I can't imagine, I can't imagine being subjected to that type of situation. And then to have him be so incredibly unrepentant, to have this guy have a chance to, I'm sorry, because the second I heard his voice, I just immediately my ears just stopped. Did he object? Did he object and say with what she was saying with victim KKK because he wanted to get the age of that child? I don't know if I heard that right, but or if he just had a question, No, there was 41 people. Now, mind you, there's people on both sides. So he said like 20 people initially, I think is what he had said. But I think he was just doing what Darrell Brooks does and just throwing a number out. Yeah, Jenna, there you go.
Your Honor, we did swap out computers because we didn't have a power cord, but no, that one won't.
So they're doing some technology
Kelsey's
issues
gonna
over
run and
there.
grab the power cord and then it should work. There's a change between what we were using earlier and that's why probably it's not recognizing the computer.
I apologize for the technical difficulties.
He is in full shackles though. Jenny, how you doing? Good morning. Where's everybody tuning in from today?
We will do that if you want to wait.
What state or what city? Where are you guys all at?
We'd like to wait if that's all right.
No problem.
Waupun? Where's it? Waupun? Derek Budd says. Texas, we got Oregon, Bethlehem, PA, Florida, North Carolina. We're spreading it out. Florida, how's everyone doing down in Florida? Got Callie in the house, Mark, Minnesota, Florida.
We may need Miss Gussie back for that.
PA, Ohio, Louisiana, what's up, Arkansas, Elkhorn's here, Rhode Island, Bakersfield,
Looking back over
Sedalia,
the
El
last
Paso.
358 days, some days are a complete blur.
Or turn the microphone closer to
Melissa,
you.
what's up in Auburn? How you doing?
Oh, sorry.
Susan, how you doing in the UK?
Katie
Alabama.
Pudliner, mother of Tyler Pudliner. Looking back over the last 358 days, some days are a complete blur, others are vivid as yesterday. At 4:39 p.m. on 11/21/21, changed my life, my sons, my family, my friends, and the Waukesha community. During the closing arguments, the defendant spoke of family. His grandmother released her statement to the media speaking of family. Through the past 358 days, we have heard from the Brooks family that the defendant has a mental illness as a reason for his decisions that evening, except the decision making goes back further than that. It seems the decision was made not to get help, not to stay medicated, etc., instead to use it as an excuse for poor, selfish decisions. My family almost lost the only son, the only grandson, the only nephew, and that was not our decision. As a parent, I have carried the guilt that I debated with my son that he had to go to the parade that day. It was mandatory for his grade. The Packers were playing. It was cold and windy. I had to use a life teaching moment. He made a commitment to the band. This was all part of it. He left reluctantly. I talked to him shortly after I found a parking spot downtown to make sure he was warm enough and told him the general area where I was going to look for a spot to watch the band perform. From 4:33 to 4:34 p.m., I watched the South Band march and perform in front of me. As I was packing up my blankets and chair into the wagon, I noticed what I thought was between a 2008 to a 2012 maroon red Ford Escape driving extremely fast past me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I remember making the mental notes about the vehicle, the driver, turned to a friend sitting with me, and we were both in awe. Then we heard the screams and the sounds of things being hit, like when you bump into a construction barrel on the freeway. From 4:46 to 4:58 was complete chaos. Fighting the crowd of people running out of the area screaming shots fired, trying to find my son. As I approached the intersection of Main Street and Barstow, the area went completely dark, maybe only in my mind, as I searched for my son, asking people if they knew where he was. A familiar voice behind me said, "He's over here." I turned to see him laying in the street with his feet pointing north.
First, enter your PIN to unlock the device.
Apologies. We had no idea what had happened, only that he was tasting blood and that his stomach hurt. Soon EMTs were there, and we went for a run up and down Main Street as he was being helped before they had a true plan where they were going to stage the injured. He was taken off the gurney and placed in the street to await an ambulance. This is where we met our first hero of the journey. A complete stranger came to sit with us and help roll my son while he was vomiting blood from his injuries, helped to keep him calm and comfort his fears. That was the 18 minutes that felt like an hour. I remember looking around as I waited. Not too far in front of me was a very young officer with his rifle standing guard. To my left were two brothers that we had known from the band and baseball. One lying on the street, clearly injured, the other standing by. I felt completely helpless as I wanted to go and help them. But I couldn't leave my son injured. They say everything happens for a reason, something I have firmly believed. At 5:16 p.m., we were loaded into the ambulance, as I refer to it as the little ambulance that could. While in the middle of everything, it had a coolant leak. The smell of antifreeze will trigger me forever. We made it out to a condom walk, and I learned after that it made another run after that before it died. While my son was whisked away to emergency surgery, I had to start making phone calls, returning text messages, figuring out what was next. Will he make it through surgery? How bad were his injuries? After 6 days at the hospital, we were sent home. My athletic son couldn't lift our cats, pour a glass of milk, put his socks and shoes on. He has a scar almost 2 foot long. And as a catcher, he questioned his ability to be able to play the sport he loves, the sport that he eats, breathes, and sleeps. After missing school and work
for almost 2 months, we were able to start to get back and work up to a full-time basis over the course of a month. One lingering injury brought questions if he could play ball for what would be the first full season of his high school career. COVID had canceled and shortened the prior two. April 6th, he took to the field with that bandmate that was lying in the street just a few feet from us just 3 months earlier. As we tried to find a sense of normal in between doctor's appointments and procedures. Next one, please. Through the process and the journey of the justice system, we have found a new family, one that can relate to the horror, the fear, the trauma of that night, changing our lives forever. The criminal complaint had listed 62 named victims, now survivors, 6 that gained their wings. What it did not include were the 16 jurors that had also become victims of the defendant's actions that night, while the named victims, their families and friends had to relive that night they were experiencing firsthand. Mrs. Edwards' statement asked that we forgive her grandson, blaming the mental illness, not encouraging him to take ownership for his actions. She said that she lost a grandson, his mother lost a son, his children lost a father. That isn't completely a true statement, as they will be able to talk to him, send him letters, visit him, hopefully in a maximum security prison. They seem to forget there is a mother that can't kiss her son goodnight, a father that can't play ball with his son, a brother that can't fight with his brother and still be his best friend. There are 3 children that can't call their mother for advice, go shopping, plan their weddings, or have them watch over them as they reach for their dreams. There are numerous grandchildren that won't get to go to grandma's anymore, get spoiled and sent home, hyped on sugar and love. There are teenagers that had to grow up way too quickly, having to make adult decisions about their future. There are girls that may never dance again without fear, their innocence taken away by a selfish decision. There is a grandfather that cannot tell the family stories anymore. He can't watch his wife dance. These families will forever be missing their loved ones. They can't call them, write a letter, or visit them. Nothing will bring back the son, the mom, the daughter, the grandma, and the grandfather to these families. Nothing can restore the innocence lost to ease their fear. But this community came together to lift up each other up, support each other, looked after those that were in their worst moments, celebrated the wins along the way, returning to the dance floor, dancing in the streets, and playing baseball. The prosecution team did an amazing job representing everyone of the plaintiffs in this case. Thank you. The victim witness team was so caring and diligent in keeping us informed, being whenever there was a question that came up. Pepper, who greeted us every time we came to the courthouse, she put a smile on everyone's face, brought a little humor or a caring snuggle. You can do the last one, Tom. Your Honor, you are the standard that should be set across the country. Your patience, your diligence will never be forgotten. From the selfish actions of one person came to a community, from one selfish actions of one person came a community rising like a phoenix, stronger than ever, stronger together. I ask that you hand down the maximum possible sentence without parole in prison so that everyone in our Waukesha strong community can heal, remember, grow, and never have to look back. It's, yeah, if you just.
I'm Tyler Pudliner, victim O. Your Honor, I appreciate the opportunity to speak today and share my impact statement with the court. It has been a long time coming, but I cannot thank the courts enough for giving not only myself, but all of us who have been affected the opportunity to share our stories. First, I would like to start off with you, Judge Darrell. Thank you, Your Honor. We have all been going through these proceedings for almost a year now, and it is almost hard to believe that this is the first time that we've gotten the opportunity to communicate with you directly. I understand now that this is how the process takes place. Now, since the beginning of these proceedings, I've obviously gone through a lot of emotions as having been a victim and survivor in this case. I hate to say it like this, but it seems that for a greater portion of the year, and especially throughout the most recent proceedings, and my mother can confirm this, I've been somewhat angry towards you, Judge Darrell. And I would now like to apologize for that. Maybe it's because I either did not understand or did not want to become aware of how lengthy the process was. There have been multiple occasions where I have gotten very mad or annoyed due to your rulings that either didn't go the prosecution's way or that I personally felt shouldn't have been made. Obviously, there were also multiple occasions where these disruptions that would continuously be made by the defendant would take up way too much time and cause way too many delays throughout the trial portion of these proceedings. It would stress all of us out more than we should have ever been, to say the least. I would keep asking my mother, other families involved, the prosecution, and victim witness teams, why can't Judge Darrell do more to stop the disruptions? Why did she let that one testimony go on for way longer than it should have? But in all thanks to those amazing people sitting behind me, I was able to get the clarification and understanding that I need to calm down and help me understand that we were making steps forward in the process. And that we were going to finally arrive at the finish line as winners. That's why I wanted to start off by thanking you first today, Judge Darrell. I am very glad that we have finally arrived at this point in the process where I can say that you did an amazing job throughout the entire process. You have not only shown myself or just the court, but an entire nation and world, for that matter, that you conducted these proceedings with the utmost respect and decorum to all of the parties involved. Lastly, Your Honor, I want to acknowledge your sainthood. Your devotion to this trial can never be matched. Your fair rulings, passion for this case, and kindness to everyone is more than everyone could have asked for, and for that, I again thank you. You've truly become like a mother and a true hero to this community, and for that, we appreciate you, Judge Darrell. I would also like to thank this amazing prosecution team, Sue, Leslie, Zach, Tom, Christy, and Ryan. You guys have been the glue that has held us together throughout this entire process over the past year. You've all taken extra time out of your day to stay late and either be able to answer all of our questions or just talk and reassure us that even though with all those sleepless nights and countless hours of delay, we would be okay. I can confidently say that I don't think there could have been a better team put together to represent us as the plaintiffs in this matter. Just like Judge Darrell, all of you have shown the passion, blood, sweat, and tears and extraordinary effort that has been poured into this case to give us the justice that many have desired and deserve. Consider yourselves true heroes to this community as well. I would also like to highlight Jen and her extraordinary team at Victim Witness Assistance. Again, a group of truly amazing people that I can't say enough words about to describe their amazing work. If we needed a shoulder to cry on, they were there. If we needed to make that late night phone call to get the answers we desired, they answered. We can truly not thank you guys enough for all your hard work and unmeasurable amount of effort that you gave us during this case to our families. And you cannot forget about personally my favorite employee in the entire courthouse, Pepper. You know how they say a dog is a man's best friend. Well, Pepper is an entire community's best friend. I personally, and I'm sure that I could speak for all of us when I say this, could not be more thankful for all the donations that have been made or have made Pepper possible. Jen and her staff have done an amazing job keeping her in line while she did what any dog does best. Gives us so much unconditional love that for a split second, you feel like all the problems are gone. Once again, I cannot thank everyone who represented us as the state of Wisconsin. You guys did one hell of a job throughout this process and have truly become a special part of this group. Finally, I want to take the time to describe how the events that occurred on November 21st, 2021 have affected my family and myself. No one thinks that something like those horrendous acts committed by the defendant on 11/20/21 will ever happen to you. Christy, if you could please. I want you to look at that, Mr. Brooks. That's what you did to me that night. That's us in the ER, waiting. I remember bits and pieces, but that is what happened. If you could go on to the next slide, please, Christy. Throughout the past year, I have become very close to other families involved in this matter. All the pictures there have what kept me going. The sport of baseball and all the other families affected in that community. I've gained more little brothers than I can say, and an entire new baseball team to live out the rest of this life with. Next slide, please. I've also met so many new friends post 11/20/21. A new grandmother to add to such a wonderful family, another new brother in that instance, that have just helped me get through everything. And it's kept us stronger through the whole process. Next slide, please, Christy. I've also gotten to become closer to other groups that were affected. Last Saturday, I marched with the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies in their Christmas parade. Veterans Day parade. Yeah, my bad. Sorry. Coming together with other groups like this is something that has, again, shown that we are very strong. We are stronger than the defendant, and we are an entire community that has shown that strength. These memories are what have kept us going and will forever keep us going in this process. Next slide, please, Christy. As I stated before, baseball is a sport that has specifically kept me going. Wrestling is another love. I've gotten to meet some very cool wrestlers, Braun Strowman to name a few, and Ric Flair. A race car driver, a local race car driver that I pit for at Slinger Speedway, has basically been another grandfather throughout this entire process. He spent every day with us at the hospital for the week I was hospitalized, except Thanksgiving. I've gained another brother who's pictured there at that wrestling event with another part of my truly amazing and big family that I've gained out of this. Christian Yelich, a Brewer, and my favorite player and now manager of the Brewers Craig Council. Go to the next slide, please. Finally, this right here, this is me and my buddy Eric. We were both affected that day, and we made the return within 3 months of everything happening to come back and play the sport that we love. We did not stay down. We did not cry. Didn't let it get to us. We came back stronger than ever. Yeah, we might have lost, but we played hard and truly showed this entire community that we are stronger together, and we are stronger than you. I just want to also address one more thing to Mr. Brooks. These are 2 quotes that have gotten me through this entire process. You can mark it down in your Bible if you want for this one. It's Romans 12:21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. The second one, also to go with his grandmother's statement, I picked it up from the book and movie The Shack, written by William P. Young. The quote is, "Forgiveness in no way requires that you trust the one you forgive. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. It is about letting go of another person's throat." And I do want to acknowledge that I am letting go of your throat, Mr. Brooks, but I have not forgiven you. Thank you, Your Honor, for the chance to speak today.
Thank you to both of you.
Hello, my name is Sasha Catalan. I was 17 years old when the Waukesha Parade incident occurred. I was in my last year of high school, thinking it was going to be the best senior year ever. Although I pushed through and made it to the end, it definitely was not easy for me or for any of us of that. After that, one night that changed our lives. I was in the Waukesha South marching band as a clarinet player. How am I doing now? That's really hard to answer because some days I get scared to leave my house, especially now since the holidays are coming around. Even when it's the simplest holidays, my mind always finds a way to go back to that parade incident. Since that day, I don't really know how to act on many events, whether good or bad. What I mean by this is that I don't really know how to show my emotions as much anymore. Before, I used to open up and could easily be read as a book, but now even my mom wonders what goes through my head, and honestly, I wish she knew. But I know that if I were to tell her, she'd be worried for me, which is the last thing that I want. Sometimes I think of what if situations since that day, that if I were to take the place of one of those people who have passed, if it would have been better. Although I am grateful to have received a chance to continue and to make something out of my life for the better, I get haunted by these thoughts. I used to never think this way, which scares me the most. Not sure whether to live actively and freely, like as if nothing ever happened, or to watch my back on the slightest things. At school, I sort of didn't want to receive any help from those who offered. Not even my boyfriend, which hurt the most. Everyone hated me seeing struggle to pick up and carry my books and binders, even carrying my backpack just over a shoulder. I wanted to continue as normally as I could back at school, but that was never going to happen. I've never felt so weak like that before in my life. I felt empty and I cried. It was hard to carry those books and everything, so I gave in and let those, including my boyfriend, help me out. Even the basics are hard to do, such as write. Either my hand shakes a little, or I would have to use a clipboard for support. Even now, then, my shoulder would pop along with my elbow if I were to simply stretch. I have to relearn how to play my favorite sports, especially soccer, when it came to kicking the ball, since I was injured on my right side of the body. I tried to learn to be a lefty, but it was hard, so I decided to heal and to not give up even with the pain of kicking with my right. To this day, it's hard to sleep because sometimes I do dream of that incident. I wake up sweating from my head with a slight fever. I instantly wake up and try to calm myself down as my heart starts to race. I have to hug something instantly to feel that I am not alone and that I am safe, such as stuffed animal, sweater, or blanket. My family has been even more worrisome and strict to me, even though I am an adult now. They instantly want to know everything I want to do. We have trust, but since the parade, my mom has been nonstop talking about me possibly getting into a car crash or her never finding me or something because I didn't aware her of a last minute plan to go eat or to simply go to a store. I understand I never want her to worry, but at the same time, she shouldn't have to be thinking of such situations. I want to pursue what makes me happy and to not have limits on myself or to feel not as confident because my mom would say that I'm better off with this since I'm safer. My life has not been easy and I've accepted that it won't be as normal as before. All of this, I still struggle to this day. I just keep moving forward, but I don't know when the nightmares will go away, when I will be completely healed physically and emotionally, having those reenactments of seeing my friends in the band scatter or those on the floor. I just wish that day never happened. Definitely not the adulthood I thought I would be having now, considering I do not know what to go in for college. This is due to me having now an interest in the medical field or law school because of the parade tragedy and wanting to have justice served for everyone in this community. This is how I am to this day. Definitely not the same Sasha as I once was before. I may be stuck finding myself for a period of time, but I am trying my best to not let the incident that affected us all to get the best of me and define who I am and to define who we all are. Thank you.
And I have a statement from Sasha's mother to read, and then I have 3 more statements from members of the Waukesha South Band in this group, Your Honor. And the next one after this is the photos. Judge Darrell, I want to express in this letter my feelings since the day of the accident, so to speak. My daughter at that time was a student at South High School and a member of the band, in which some members, including her, were struck by the truck causing injuries. Since that day, I cannot get out of my head all of the screams of pain, anguish, and terror that were hurt along that long street with no end in sight. Young children, elderly people, and relatives running to protect themselves. I had mixed feelings, and even worse, my daughter was in the hospital with a lost look and without understanding what had happened. There have been months of uncertainty, of sleepless nights, nervous breakdowns, and foolish thoughts. What hurts me the most is seeing how my daughter has completely changed. From being a girl who wanted so many things for her future to see her now so quiet, so distant, and still so stunned with many questions and so many others. The hardest thing to hear is that she would have preferred to give her life for that of some other person who lost their life. For me as a mother, it is very difficult to be able to tell her that everything will be fine when at the time I was not behind her to protect her from everything that happened. I know that many will say overcome it already, but nobody knows what it's like trying to stand on your feet when your world has no floor. I hope justice is done, and I am thankful to each and every one of you who has not left us alone. Policemen, doctors, prosecutors, angels, and all of those people who I could not name who were and are still here to support us. This is just the beginning for many of us, and it will be a long road, but I am sure of one thing, and that is that we will be able to get back up. Thank you very much. Waukesha, let's hug very tight because our children need us. Mother of Victim I. And this next one, they sent us some photos this morning. Are you ready for them? Thank you, Judge Darrell, for your patience through this trial. Thank you to the entire prosecution team for being so well prepared for this case. And lastly, thank you to Victim Witness Assistance for looking out for all of us. My name is Donald Teagues, and I am the father of victim Q, or Eric Teagues. Both of my sons, Eric and Tyson, were marching with the Waukesha South Marching Band in the 2021 Waukesha Christmas Parade. Eric was a junior and Tyson was a freshman. They were there to play Christmas music for the people and start off the holiday season. That came to a quick end when you, Darrell E. Brooks Jr., drove through the parade killing people, injuring people, and ruining what was supposed to be a beautiful event. And we haven't been told when to do the photos, so Christy, if you can use your judgment, thank you. Darrell Brooks, you hit and ran over Eric along with some of his bandmates. Tyson, his younger brother, was just feet away from Eric when you hit and ran him over. Tyson witnessed his brother getting hit and ran over along with other bandmates. Tyson never left his brother's side during this incident. He even took off his jacket to help keep his brother warm while he laid in the middle of the street. He then had to call his mother and try to explain what had happened. As he stood next to his brother, he saw blood coming out of his ear, nose, and mouth, and his leg that was pointing backwards. He would just keep telling Eric he will be fine and that mom was on her way. He stayed with him until Eric was taken by ambulance to the hospital. Starting that night, Tyson had nightmares and had them for a week. He would wake up screaming and crying. And what made this even worse is he couldn't go to see his brother in the hospital, and my wife and I could not be there for Tyson the first few nights because we were with his brother in the ICU at Children's Hospital. My daughter, who wasn't at the parade, but went with her mother to the parade after Tyson called. She stayed with Tyson at the scene and at home when we couldn't be there. She needed to see a psychiatrist to help her deal with what she saw on the streets that day and seeing her brother lying there on the ground, not knowing if he would live. She had to be in outpatient care for 2 weeks to help her through what she saw. Eric was an aspiring baseball player for the Waukesha South baseball team and a select baseball player for Styx Academy. He was making his final push to get better and wanting to be scouted by colleges to play in college at an elite level. You took that away from him that November day. He spent 9 days in the hospital. 3 of those were in ICU. Eric suffered from a skull fracture, a major concussion, a C4 fracture, right shoulder fracture, 4 broken ribs, a partially collapsed lung, T6 through T11 fractures, and a left femur fracture that required surgery. He is lucky to be alive. The C4 fracture could have killed him. The femur fracture could have killed him, or the broken ribs along with the lung collapse could have killed him. His time in the hospital was very hard. dealing with nonstop pain from you hitting him and running over him like he was a speed bump. He had to lay flat for 4 days and wear a C-collar for 7 days because of the C4 fracture. He had a chest tube to drain the blood off of his lung so he could breathe. He had to undergo surgery to repair his severely fractured femur. On top of all of that, he was dealing with a severe concussion. He could not have any lights on or loud noises. He would have events of uncontrolled vomiting and would spike fevers. When he was finally able to leave the hospital, it was in a wheelchair, and he was in that wheelchair for over a month. We had to have a wheelchair ramp built for when we came home. Without the ramp, it would have been very hard to get him in and out of the house. My wife had to take off a month of unpaid leave from work. I had to take off 3 months from work to take care of him and get him to multiple doctor appointments a week. Darrell Brooks, you stated during this whole trial that you are a man, a God-loving man. You are not. A real man would have stopped when they saw they made a mistake. A real man would have admitted the wrong and would not have put all these families through this pain. A man of God would have stopped, admitted to his wrongs, and asked for forgiveness. You sat there showing no emotions for what you did and pretend that reading the Bible was going to help you. But you, Darrell Brooks, are pure evil that is not fooling anyone. You don't know God, but you better start learning, because where you are going, you're going to need to start praying a lot. You don't deserve to see the light of day ever again. You should never be able to see your children again. It's too bad this state doesn't have the death penalty, because you would be put to the front of the line. I hope you rot in hell, have a miserable existence in prison, and that someone teaches you a true lesson in asking for forgiveness. The next statement is from victim H. It's been nearly a year since the Waukesha Parade incident, and I know my friends, family, and myself still remember it vividly. Personally, I have an injury that could affect me the rest of my life. Doing normal things like carrying groceries or even my school supplies to classes have proven to be more of a challenge compared to what it used to be. And some mornings I'm not even able to lift my arm past my shoulder. It's hard, but I'm living through it because I refused a long time ago that I would have this man, someone who thought of no one and nothing past the incident, control what I can and can't do. I can't remember vividly what happened, just pain sparking up from the back of my head and my shoulder and people standing over me. It wasn't until I woke up the next day after everything and tried to stand up did I realize how much pain I was truly in, and it only got worse the following days. My progress in what I can do with my injuries over this difficult year has been positive. I've rebuilt most of my strength, but I've been told time and again from my family, friends, medical professionals, it may never be what it used to be, and to remember that this may be it. But that's only a possibility to me. Nothing is set in stone. Medicine is a practice because we never have all the answers. I was lucky to have family and friends who could help me physically, but nothing was permanent. All it took was a single thing to throw all progress out the window. If I wake up lying on my side, I already know that that day is going to be painful because simple things like sleeping hurt. Emotionally, the only constant support I've had is that of my friends and family. I've chosen out of my own free will not to see medical professionals for my mental state because I hold the belief that therapy is great and can do many great things for people. But what I do here and now has a bigger impact on myself. Putting a pause on my life to think about what happened to me and the people I know isn't worth it. I wake up at least twice a week to terrors of what happened, seeing and feeling the same things as that night and the days that followed. The endless possibilities of what could have happened, not just to me but others, whether I knew them or not, flood my dreams and scare me to my core. I remember my parents the day after. I had been dead asleep all night from stress and finally running out of adrenaline, to find out that they hadn't slept. My father chose to stay up in the living room where I had been sleeping to watch over me instead of recuperating himself. I may not have completely understood then because I didn't want to, but after a year of dealing with the outcome, I understand. Being who I am, I hide what I'm feeling a lot. Right after the incident, I remember friends coming up to me and seeking comfort, to which I had no problem with, but there would be triggers in what they would say that would bring me back. But I pushed it away to comfort others. Humor is the world's medicine, and like most traumatic situations in my life, I've applied humor to this now. I'm sensitive to who I'm with, but when talking, I try to think of something witty or humorous so that I can jump over the obstacle or burden of trauma and to put it plainly, sadness. This past homecoming, my friends and I had gone to the dance, and one of my friends was driving us to eat afterwards. The place was on the far side of town, and the quickest route was through downtown. It wasn't their fault at all, but we were stopped because a group of people were crossing the road, and it was right near where I was hit, and I panicked. My vision went blurry, and I had flashbacks of the night. My friends had noticed and helped me through it, and we found a better route. I can't remember a time before having that bad of a panic attack where it's hard to breathe, and knowing the reason behind it is just another reminder I won't be the same, much like most people who were affected. During the time of the trial, I've stayed away from news on what's happening. I've overheard conversations with family members. Sometimes it's brought up within my friend groups, most of which have chosen to be understanding of my choices and move away from the topic. Mentally, this past month, I've had more terrors, not always while I'm sleeping, but when I zone out at school or at home. I never show a reaction because I choose to keep that in, but I do change in how I stand or sit, and I noticed I'm more jumpy around people after experiencing these terrors. Hearing about what happened within this case has been a stressful time for everyone in my family. I tend to not sleep as well as I normally do, even on good nights, and I find myself panicking over small things such as schoolwork more than I ever have. Thank you, Victim H. And the final statement from the band is from Victim K. At the time of the Waukesha Holiday Parade, I was your typical carefree teenager. As a 17-year-old at Waukesha South, I had only just begun my senior year, a time that some might argue to be the best year of high school. Sadly, that all changed in a mere instant. I was marching in the parade with the Waukesha South Band, playing the sousaphone, parentheses tuba, when Brooks appeared out of nowhere, plowing into me from behind. He dragged both me and my instrument upon the hood of his vehicle for what seemed like miles, before eventually running me over entirely. Luckily, I was swiftly rushed to Waukesha Memorial Hospital by an officer via squad car for emergency treatment. I was completely alone during this time and positively terrified. The ER medical staff was utterly shocked that I had even survived such a forceful impact. I suffered multiple injuries due to the impact, including ligament damages, deep tissue contusions, and both a sprained neck and ankle. Post-evaluation, the doctors explained to me how my instrument had likely saved my life. Saved my life. Those words still echo loudly in my head. While my instrument may have helped to protect me, my life, as I knew it, was entirely destroyed by Brooks that evening. I spent several weeks on crutches, then followed that up with multiple braces. I felt completely disabled, as I was unable to walk or even move without constant pain or assistance from someone. Outside of the injuries I sustained, my entire body ached for several weeks, and I felt like one giant bruise. This lengthy loss of mobility ultimately resulted in the loss of my only employment, my part-time job. However, despite my injuries, it was the sheer horror of the events of that night, coupled with the unwanted attention after the parade, which sent me into a downward spiral of misery and depression. Everything I had experienced and continued to deal with had eventually caused me to lose all focus, so I fell behind at school. I simply gave up on my studies and school entirely after the accident. I hated all of the extra attention it brought. Consequently, I was not able to graduate on time with all of my closest friends and peers. That was one of my lowest times, which of course only added to the darkness and depression I was already trying to navigate through. Any physical injuries that my body sustained as the result of this crime do not begin to compare to the mental massacre I have been forced to battle every day since then. My dreams have been assaulted by the images of that night. Bodies were strewn everywhere. Victims were sobbing and crying in pain and fear all around me. My horrific dreams have all but forced me into a constant and chronic state of insomnia. I have been unable to enjoy any form of restful slumber in nearly a full year. I also cannot bring myself to revisit the downtown Waukesha area at all. I become completely stressed even being near the area where I was hit. This is disturbing on a very personal level. My mother is a Waukesha native born and raised. She would often reflect upon her love for this town, the events and parades, and the community as a whole. Our family used to spend so many days together in the downtown area, but not now. Now I become physically ill just considering going downtown, and it hurts to know we can no longer share those special family moments together. In addition, I now suffer from panic attacks in any crowded public settings. I cannot even enjoy a simple sporting event or concert because I have developed a hypersensitivity to screaming crowds. They send me into a complete panic, putting my head on a swivel and always watching for danger. The PTSD and hopelessness that I continue to suffer as a result of that November day continues to be an ongoing battle, warranting decades of therapy. Mr. Brooke is sheer evil in its vilest form. He should never again know any sense of freedom. I hope that the rest of his days are haunted by the videos, images, and stories shared by each and every victim. I hope every night his dreams are teeming with visions of those 6 innocent people who perished in his wake. I want him to suffer like all of us has, every single day until he takes his very last breath. His refusal to accept any responsibility for his actions deserves no less. I would strongly urge the court to extend the firmest sentencing possible for every single guilty charge. On behalf of myself, my family, all of the victims, the dearly deceased, and all of Waukesha, please issue Brooks the maximum penalties possible. Victim K. That is the end of this group.
All right, thank you. I know we had about an hour or so break, but I do think it's also important that court staff and everyone here get a lunch break as well. So we will break for an hour-ish. I'll plan to be back here at 1:15. All right, thank you, everyone. We are in recess.
All right, well, that was every bit as heartbreaking and gut-wrenching as anyone would expect. So yeah, we're seeing exactly what we expected to see from him. Theatrics, a display of, fake remorse, whatever you want to call it. I mean, at this point, he's just he's all for the show. It's all about the show. And but the way it's going to work out, and what we'll probably do is I think we'll all take a little bit of a break, so that we don't end up cresting over. So what I'll probably do is take a lunch break and then come back on. So we'll do a 2-part stream today. It'll be part 1, part 2 of day 1. So because as you know, if we go the full distance throughout the full day, we're only able to do, I have to cut it at 8 hours anyway. So we're about creeping up on the 4-hour mark already. So that being said, the way this is going to work out is there's about 41 victims that are going to speak and or victim impact statements that will be read, much like the advocate was just reading. So, and that's going to be on the victim side. Darrell Brooks will have his opportunity to have people speak on his behalf, which I know anyone that watches or knows anything about this case, is probably just, through the floor about who's going to actually speak on his behalf. But we all know his mother's going to speak on his behalf. His grandmother, I think, might. He said that the mother of his youngest child is planning on speaking and bringing their 8-year-old into the courtroom for that statement. Originally, he said he has 20 people that are going to speak. I don't see that happening. No matter what happens, though, with the amount of people that speak today or tomorrow, we are definitely going to move into 2 days. So if we get through everything today, all the victim impact statements and the victims' statements themselves, and Darrell Brooks's, his whatever his party of, I guess, Simps, whoever is going to go ahead and try to speak on his behalf for whatever reason they might need to speak. There's no leniency here. There's not going to be. The judge is beyond the point where she's going to think about the words that are going to come. I mean, I take that back. The judge will definitely do her diligence to service the courts to the full measure of her position as a judge. Subtext: he's going to go to life in prison, or prison for life, 100%. I mean, we all know this is going to happen. It's got to happen. There's no other options for him. Even if they don't hit him with the life sentences, they're going to hit him with another 900 years or 700 plus years for the, for the other subsequent charges. So Yeah, but I will be live until court is over. What I am going to do though is take a little breather. I'm going to get some food as well, stretch a little bit, and recoup a little bit of my emotional fortitude for the second half of this of the day. So what we're going to do is I want everyone to make sure to set up notifications right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, wherever you have to be, Twitter, Rockfin, wherever. Soon to be Rumble as well. And make sure that you come back in. Doesn't have another court case somewhere else. No. I'm Jacqueline. I'm here for the duration. We'll be here all day and then into tomorrow, of course. So we're just going to be sitting down with a little bit of a breather. I think we all need a little bit of a breather to stretch your heart, stretch your feet, and yeah, get some lunch in you. I think we all need it. So between now and when I come back, and we'll say I'll be back on we'll call it 10 after 1 Central Time. Share the stream, set up notifications. Think of a group that you might want to share this to, and get it out to them. And yeah, definitely hit the like button. If you guys appreciate what I'm doing out here for you, whatever support you want to show, greatly appreciated. Be that stars on Facebook, super chats, super stickers, whatever on YouTube, or even just sending some love my way via the way of some likes and some shares. I really appreciate that as well. So I'll be seeing you guys here very soon. Make sure to share the stream again. We'll be back in about 45 minutes to an hour. Between now and then, you guys behave. All right. And if you're out in the snow, drive safe. But see you guys in just a few.